Chapter 588, Mountain and Sea Sword Force, Tearing the Sky with One Sword Strike. Jiang Hao looked at the three deceased individuals and returned to his original appearance. He was worried that these people would spread the news about Smiling San Sheng. Having encountered the fallen immortal clan once before, he didn't want to experience it again. He wondered if they had a unique method of transmitting names. Logically, they shouldn't. With my divine powers, I would be able to sense anything they try to do. While he cleaned up, he picked up the storage treasures. The fallen immortal clan's man at the peak of Soul Ascension Realm hadn't been as strong as he had expected. After picking up the 3 storage treasures, he set the bodies on fire. Only then did he deactivate his divine ability. At this moment, the pitch-black sky was covered by light, and rumbling sounds approached from a distance. Many strong individuals from the Heavenly Note sect flew out. From a distance, the interweaving of their powers continued without interruption. Even he wouldn't dare to face these forces directly. It seems they haven't broken in. As long as the Great Formation wasn't breached, he was still safe. He headed to the Spirit Herb Garden again. Since the Great Formation was still intact, it meant that the Heavenly Note sect and the Black Heaven sect were sufficiently prepared, and a sudden attack was unlikely to happen. He spent a long time watering the spirit herbs with moonlight and dew before sitting cross-legged on the ground. He didn't intend to return to the mountain gate temporarily. It was too dangerous. During this time he had purchased a lot of extra items for planting the spirit herbs. Unfortunately, he was still lacking over 10,000 spirit stones. I wonder if the storage treasures I obtained tonight can fill this gap. Jiang Hao murmured softly as he took out 3 storage pouches. After a quick look at the first one, he found only some spirit herbs and nothing. How could this be? He looked at the others and found the same thing. Did they use it all before coming here? The lack of spirit stones disappointed Jiang Hao. When the people had attacked him today, he had almost felt excited that he might get more spirit stones. Unfortunately, there were no spirit stones. I'll have to earn it myself. Fortunately, he still had Heaven Rejuvenating Pill to sell. It might make up for the shortage. The abnormality lasted for a very long time. The brightness in the sky fluctuated, and it seemed like 10 days had passed outside. However, the situation had changed. The force had become even more complex now. Hong Yuya told him that no one from the Heavenly Note sect and the Black Heaven sect could control it. During this time he hadn't been to the mountain gate, and the guards had changed to stronger disciples after the outbreak of a major battle. However, the grand competition had not stopped. But the change in the situation seemed to have brought a lot of trouble to the Black Heaven sect. If the situation cannot be reversed, perhaps we can no longer stay here. The Grand Earth Sovereign's power should be as vast as the mountains and rivers and as bright as the sun and moon. But now, the power was accompanied by darkness and a fallen atmosphere. They could only observe the situation but couldn't act on it. A few more days passed, and many disciples of the Heavenly Note sect ignited the fire of their blood and spiritual energy to resonate with the great force in the high sky. Although the flames were quickly extinguished, the 2 great forces completely merged. But it was no longer vast and boundless. The Black Heaven sect felt helpless. In the sky, Gu Yun's body was covered in blood. He looked at the situation unfolding and laughed loudly. Nangong Wenwu, what if you defeat me? You can't change anything. You'll miss the chance and Xinyuan clan will never rise again. Being interrupted during the buildup of the force was very damaging. Nangong Wenwu's face darkened. You're really seeking death. A loud rumbling spread in all directions and many people in the Heavenly Note sect were worried. Senior brother Kendo, do you think the Grand Earth Sovereign can still appear? Asked the man who was the first to meet Kendo at the gate. He was Zhuo Ping, an inner disciple of the Thunder Fire Peak. Lately, this senior had been guiding him in his cultivation and had even given him a new technique. Now he had started practicing swordsmanship and his progress was rapid. His junior was about the same but with a different technique. It seems to be a failure, but if someone succeeds in integrating the great force at this time, that would be a true success. Do you think our sect would be grateful if someone did this? Kendo asked. It's hard to say, but Black Heaven sect will definitely be grateful. I heard that this great force has brought many benefits to our sect this time, so they should also be happy, Zhuo Ping said. If they're not happy, then wouldn't this person be at a loss? It's hard to say. After all, the Grand Earth Sovereign has appeared. Isn't his appearance beneficial to us ordinary cultivators? Zhuo Ping said. Kendo smiled and nodded. Then he remembered something. I recall what my master said. Ah, what did he say? Zhuo Ping asked curiously. Kendo smiled and moved his body, saying, When I had just started and was still ignorant, my master told me that if you truly don't understand, go and look at the mountains. Go and look at the sea. At that time I was learning the sword, so to understand the sword, I saw the mountain as a sword and the sea as a sword. Later I walked across mountains and crossed seas. Still, I couldn't comprehend it until I saw the figure in the mountains and a reflection in the stream. That's when I realized the sword I needed to comprehend had always been in my own hands. At that time I saw the mountain as a mountain and the sea as a sea. Zhuo Ping didn't understand, but he still exclaimed, Your master is really amazing. Ha ha ha. Kendo laughed. I really like you, junior brother. But do you know what others saw me as from that moment? What did they see? Zhuo Ping asked. They saw this. Kendo pointed his 2 fingers like a sword and pointed high toward the sky. In that instant, a shocking intent soared into the sky. Zhuo Ping widened his eyes. He could hardly believe it. He seemed to see the vast and boundless sword shadows. Mountain and sea sword force. Boom. Endless rumbling echoed and shook the entire Heavenly Note sect. In the spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao was astonished. He looked up and saw a long sword piercing the sky and resonating throughout the 8 directions. Soon after, screams and roars echoed from the sky. However, everything quickly vanished, and the entire Heavenly Note sect stood prepared. All defenses were activated and all the experts stood ready. The entire cliff of broken hearts erupted with an unprecedented force as if preparing for a calamity. The terrifying sword's momentum could crush everything. Everyone was in a panic, but Jiang Hao remained unfazed. In an instant, the beast and Shaoli were by his side. Master, this sword doesn't show any respect to me, the beast said. Shaoli nodded, but she wasn't scared. However, she was still startled by the scene. It was the first time she had seen such a massive sword. The reason Jiang Hao didn't flee was that the sword intent had arrived a long time ago. He knew the person. If he really intended to attack the Heavenly Note sect, he would have done it long ago. As expected, the sword momentum did not attack anyone. Instead, it began to integrate with the great force. A white figure streaked across the sky and headed toward the source of the sword's intent. Jiang Hao knew that it was Elder Baizhi. I thought the sect master would appear. Even in this situation, they haven't shown up. I wonder if something unexpected has happened. He had thought that the appearance of Kendo would definitely be enough to draw out the Heavenly Note Demoness. It disappointed Jiang Hao. He was curious about the current status of the sect master. Of course, more than that, he was eager to see their strength. He was still too weak now and needed to become stronger. Chapter 589, Conversation with the Saint Bandit. The vast sword intent covered the sky and concealed the sun. The only thing Jiang Hao could perceive was the great force. The sword intent integrated with the great force of the Heavenly Note sect and the fallen immortal clan and began to merge with the earth. Under such a great force, everyone present would benefit significantly. It was even more likely to bring about the appearance of the Grand Earth Sovereign. It seemed that the fallen immortal clan was fleeing. Kendo didn't pay attention to these people. After a long time, the sword intent began to subside, and the strong representatives of the sect were all heading toward the source. They wanted to meet this powerful figure. The aura of the Cliff of Broken Hearts also gradually dissipated. Everything returned to normal. Jiang Hao let out a sigh of relief. It was unexpected that Kendo had helped. But since he had arrived and extended a helping hand, it was only natural to thank him. Perhaps he had offered his aid as a courtesy. In any case, he needed to pay attention to what came next. There were many treasures of the Heavenly Note sect with him, especially the Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower. Fortunately, the person was treating him courteously. If they had invaded him, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Jiang Hao intended to attend to his own matters, but he suddenly thought of something. A strong figure had arrived. Is this the person mentioned by Senior Dan Yuan? Is he here for the Heaven Lock technique? Jiang Hao was wary. Powerful individuals were unpredictable. Just because that person was being courteous right now didn't mean they would always be like that. Furthermore, if they became greedy, trouble would surely ensue. Kendo might have had dealings with Senior Dan Yuan like Zhuang Yuzhen had. So, it wouldn't be surprising if they took action. Now that Elder Baizhi had gone over, the next step would be to observe the Heaven Lock technique. But it was in his possession. I wonder if I'll get caught up in this. Jiang Hao stopped overthinking. The answers would be known in a few days. At present he needed to maintain a low profile and await Elder Baiji's instructions. 3 days later the sky had completely returned to normal, and the influence brought by the fallen immortal clan gradually disappeared. That sword's intent was startling and inspiring. Jiang Hao felt the same way. He didn't know how long it would take for him to reach that kind of power, but he would strive to get closer. For now he was focused on planting spirit herbs, even if it meant consuming his own spirit stones. In another 2 months it would be almost time. The 6-month deadline was approaching twice as fast. I wonder if this will cause another commotion. For the benefits he could endure that too. People only spread rumors after all. It wouldn't attract too much attention. Another 3 days passed. Jiang Hao received a message from the White Moon Lake. It instructed him to go to the Lawless Tower. He knew that Kendo had already reached an agreement with Elder Baiji. He was also quite sure that Kendo had come looking for the Heaven Lock technique. It wasn't a good thing that the Heaven Lock technique was in his hands. After a while he reached the 5th floor of the Lawless Tower. Jiang Hao was led to the center by senior sister Insha. There was a table here and above it was a mirror that shone down. You can sit here, junior brother Jiang, and then place the items on the table. Don't worry about anything else. All right. Jiang Hao nodded. Before coming up, senior sister Insha had informed him that someone wanted to borrow the Heaven Lock technique. He looked around but didn't see Kendo anywhere. He is on a higher floor and won't meet with you yet, so you don't need to worry too much, senior sister Insha said kindly. Jiang Hao nodded and thanked her. So that was how it was. He felt much more at ease. It seemed that the Heavenly Note sect also didn't want anyone to know where the Heaven Lock technique was. The moment he sat down at the table, Jiang Hao had a strange feeling that someone was sitting across from him. Then he took out the Heaven Lock technique, placed it under the light of the mirror and slowly opened it. The characters on it began to manifest. In Jiang Hao's eyes they were still chaotic. He seemed to see a person sitting next to him. It was a middle-aged man. He looked at Jiang Hao and said, I was born in the Heavenly Spirit tribe. Our tribe was blessed by the heavens and born at a height beyond the reach of countless others. This was a source of pride for me. But, for 100 years, our tribe has not seen any new life. I thought it was a problem with our tribe, so I began to explore medical arts. However, even medical arts couldn't save our tribe. I explored witchcraft and this time I succeeded, but the newborns were different from ordinary Heavenly Spirit tribe infants. They had no talent. Even their lifespans were unusually short. I tried a few more times but the result was the same. I didn't continue after that and began to observe. 10 years, 100 years. No result until one fateful day, a major battle occurred and our tribe suffered enormous casualties. After that, babies were born in our tribe. Their talent was exceptional. In the following years, the population became stagnant again. This time there was one more person than before, but after calculating the talents of each person, I noticed something. The talents of these two were weaker than the previous ones. This discovery shocked me. I observed not only the Heavenly Spirit tribe but also other humans, the Fallen Immortal clan, the True Dragon clan, and the Flood Dragon race. Jiang Hao sat upright. The sword on the table was moving, and the characters were still falling into place. At that moment the figure stood up. I spent thousands of years observing and consulting countless scriptures. Finally I understood one thing. There was only one race as strong as the Torch Dragon. Born with the same lifespan as the heavens, an overwhelming might erupted as soon as they opened their eyes. However, they were weak in numbers like the humans. Heaven and earth somewhat favor many races. The Heavenly Spirit tribe and the True Dragon clan were born with astonishing talents. They were admired by countless others, but their numbers were far fewer than those who were born weak. They couldn't be compared to ordinary humans. At that point I came to a conclusion. The total number of racial talent remains fixed. Chapter 590, The Grand Unity of Heaven and Earth. Jiang Hao was astonished. He had a rough understanding of the content of the scroll from his last encounter, but this was much clearer. The characters were still falling in place, and Kendo's strength could support the aura of the Heaven Lock technique. As the sword intent surged, the figure became more mobile. The total amount of innate talent is fixed, so for races that are born standing on higher ground due to their talents, once the racial talents are divided, the population of the group will no longer increase. The Heavenly Spirit tribe went through that, and so did the True Dragon clan. As for the Flood Dragon clan, since their total innate talent was not as much as the True Dragon clan's, They sought a relationship with the True Dragon clan. Eventually, they could transform into true dragons. Humans are different. They are born ordinary. Even though they have talents, they are small in number and have shorter lifespans. Therefore, even if the quantity of the talent is limited, it won't affect their population. At that moment, the figure looked at the two of them and seemed to sense that someone was watching him. After discovering all this, what were your thoughts? Feelings? Jiang Hao was in awe. This person's talent and knowledge was simply unbelievable. Kendo was silent for a moment. It is somewhat unbelievable. The figure smiled. I am excited, very excited. Finally, I found my reason. Knowing the reason allows me to find a way to change this. I succeeded and found a way to interfere with it. However, selfishness cannot change anything. My goal has changed. My purpose no longer revolves only around the heavenly spirit tribe. What I want is the grand unity of heaven and earth. I want to unify the races and bring forth a radiant, new era. What I seek is a unity where there are no racial limitations, no total innate talent, no limit for races. Everyone can follow and achieve the cultivation path, and everyone has a chance to do so. I want all races to rise and contend for the world. I want innate talent to no longer be everything. In this way, I want to achieve the grand unity of heaven and earth. Did you succeed? Kendo asked. The middle-aged figure smiled faintly and didn't answer the question. He sat down again and spoke, but this time, Jiang Hao couldn't understand his words. It seemed to involve power and it was intricate and obscure. Before long, even Kendo couldn't continue. He slowly withdrew the sword's intent. Jiang Hao knew that it wasn't easy to completely comprehend the heaven lock technique. However, what he had gained this time was sufficient for him. At least now he knew what the grand unity of heaven and earth was. It was indeed a great goal, but unfortunately their actions to achieve this were questionable. Jiang Hao didn't have a favorable opinion of Saint Bandits. However, the Saint Bandits were definitely being closely watched by the world. If it was only the idealistic theory, it wouldn't be a big problem. But when the heaven lock technique was unveiled, everything changed. The Saint Bandits might actually succeed. After the light from the mirror disappeared, Jiang Hao put away the heaven lock technique. At that moment, senior sister Yin Sha looked at him in a daze. Is it over? It's over. Jiang Hao nodded. Senior sister Yin Sha was astonished. She hadn't noticed anything. Boom. Suddenly, a collision startled Jiang Hao. He turned to look. Nangong, you had crashed into the wall. I sensed his aura. What have you done? Jiang Hao naturally wouldn't tell her that someone had just observed the heaven lock technique. However, the appearance of that figure did not seem like a simple illusion. It felt like a living person was before him. Kendo probably felt the same way, which was why he asked if they had succeeded. The Saint Bandits should have failed. The decline of the heavenly spirit tribe and the sealing of the Saint Bandits should have been enough. After a long while, Jiang Hao left the lawless tower. It was a good thing he hadn't met Kendo in person. It had made him feel uneasy when Kendo had met his eyes before. The fallen immortal clan retreated. Kendo had achieved his goal. All the matters should have been settled now. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, he could focus on growing spirit herbs, but he still lacked 10,000 spirit stones. He needed to figure out a way to obtain them. 7 more days passed. It was already early June. A sword shadow broke through the sky, with tremendous momentum. Kendo has left. Jiang Hao was in the spirit herb garden. With the current situation settled, all the unexpected events had calmed. The Black Heaven sect had also gained a lot. Now it was a matter of whether the Grand Earth Sovereign would appear or not. Previously, it might have been impossible, but with someone like Kendo taking action, there was now a possibility. The grand competition continued. Jiang Hao remained in the spirit herb garden and was relieved of his gatekeeping duty for the time being. He was quite content with this. As time passed, a golden light appeared in the sky. A figure appeared in the golden light. He was standing on the ground with an emperor-like aura. But the aura was not stable. Jiang Hao knew that it was the aura of the Grand Earth Sovereign. Even if he didn't succeed this time, he would still be able to refine the aura in the future. Jiang Hao didn't know who exactly it was. Around mid-July, all the matters seemed to calm down. Jiang Hao heard that the last one to resonate with the Great Force was Xinyuan Tai. It seemed that he was the most likely to become the Grand Earth Sovereign, especially since he also had the favor of the mountain and the sea. He had appraised some people from the Xinyuan clan. Not all of them had the blessing of the mountain and the sea. Xinyuan Tai was truly unique. For Jiang Hao, the most important thing was the spirit herbs. During this period, he sold a heaven rejuvenating pill for 7,500 spirit stones. In addition, he sold some talismans and earned about 1,500 spirit stones. He also sold some spirit herbs he had stored. In the end, he managed to accumulate the required spirit stones. Today was the day when the first batch of the spirit herbs would mature. He needed to go and see how many bubbles had appeared. At the spirit herb garden, as soon as Jiang Hao entered, he saw blue bubbles everywhere. As he approached, these bubbles began to absorb into his body. In total, there were 28 blue bubbles and 8 green bubbles. Out of 100 seeds, only 28 blue bubbles. It was not as many as he had expected. Jiang Hao was a little disappointed. Fortunately, the difference wasn't too big. During late July, another batch of spirit herbs sprouted. This time, Jiang Hao found that there were quite a few more blue bubbles than before. In total, there were 35 blue bubbles and 12 green bubbles. This exceeded his expectations. Now he only needed to wait for the final batch. Around early August, Jiang Hao once again walked to the spirit herb garden. The grand force of the Heavenly Note sect had completely disappeared, and the collaboration between the Black Heaven sect and the Heavenly Note sect had also come to an end. During this time, many people had gained opportunities, including junior brother Han Ming. Currently, Han Ming was only a step away from becoming a Golden Core Realm cultivator. His progress was unbelievably fast. Reaching the Golden Core Realm at the age of 32 was indeed remarkable. When Jiang Hao entered the spirit herb garden, he saw many blue bubbles. He breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that he would be able to advance in time. He just didn't know when Hong Yuya would visit. However, he didn't have any spirit stones left. Chapter 591, How did the Cliff of Broken Hearts do it? Jiang Hao was surrounded by numerous bubbles as he entered the spirit herb garden. As the bubbles merged, he also witnessed changes in his cultivation values. Starting from 82, they continuously increased to 85, 89, 93. Finally, it stopped at 99. Jiang Hao finally breathed a sigh of relief. This time he gained a total of 38 blue bubbles again. He had gotten over 100 bubbles in total. It was more than he had expected. However, this also indicated that the benefits brought by the high-grade spirit herbs after achieving the return to Void Realm would be significantly reduced. The next day, Jiang Hao obtained 2 blue bubbles from his courtyard. He then looked at his interface. 6 months are finally up. This time he would be advancing to a new realm in less than 7 months. It took him half the time than usual. After Kendo left, he had been waiting for Elder Baiji to reclaim the Heaven Lock technique, or for her to at least ask him about it. However, there was nothing. This continued for 2 months. It seemed like no one was paying any attention to him for now. This worked in his favor. Finally, his task of guarding the mountain gate was also completed. A few days ago he even turned in the task and received more than 1,000 spirit stones as a reward. It was a pleasant surprise. Now he had 1,300 spirit stones left. To avoid any unexpected visits from Ching Chou, Jiang Hao instructed the spirit beast to stand guard. He told Ching Chou and the others to handle anything that came up in the garden for that day. The beast and Ching Chou would manage things themselves. In his absence, this was how they had always operated. So, there was no need for him to worry. Later, Jiang Hao returned to his room and waited for nighttime. Advancing during the daytime always seemed troublesome. It was better at night because people rarely visited at night. At night, Jiang Hao prepared everything he needed and began to extract his cultivation and lifeblood. In an instant, he felt an overwhelming influx of spiritual energy and lifeblood into his body. The Hong Ming Heart Sutra circulated madly, and his body was filled with spiritual energy. Jiang Hao could still guide the power, and once everything went smoothly, he could advance to the return to Void Realm. The cultivation method and the steps for advancement were all clear to him. The only thing to be concerned about was unforeseen circumstances. He didn't have books in this regard, so he needed to be flexible. Unknowingly, a purple mist covered Jiang Hao, and the purple cocoon appeared once again. The next day, at the Candlelight Pill Pavilion, Qing Yu was reporting the recent developments to Bu Yi. People are all laughing at us. I heard that their spirit herbs may take root and sprout a month earlier. It's said that they have mastered a new method of growing them. Theirs is in the spirit herb garden of the Law Enforcement Hall. It should have been us. Now, it's almost impossible to cooperate with them even if we spend more spirit stones. We ignored them before and now we can't reach their level. Those people outside are saying that you missed a golden opportunity because of your stubbornness and chose the muddy heap to grow the spirit herbs in. I can't refute them. I can only avoid them. Qingyu sounded a bit sour. Clearly, this opportunity should have been theirs and now it belonged to someone else. A month earlier? Wuyi was surprised. Won't that affect the quality? It shouldn't. Otherwise they wouldn't dare to spread the news. Some spirit liquid can help with that, said Qingyu. Wuyi lowered his head. He looked regretful. This was a long-term partnership. If they had chosen the other spirit herb garden, they could have benefited a lot. Senior brother, do you regret it? Qingyu asked softly. Wuyi sighed inwardly. But what could he do? He silently accepted it. His only choice was to recoup the loss. As long as he advanced to the primordial spirit realm, it was good enough for him. So there was still a chance. Senior brother, something serious has happened, said an urgent voice. Both Wuyi and Qingyu were puzzled. They turned to see a Foundation Establishment realm disciple rushing in. What's going on? Why are you in such a hurry? Wuyi asked. It's the Cliff of Broken Hearts, said the disciple. Is there a problem with the spirit herbs at the Cliff of Broken Hearts? Qingyu asked immediately. Had she been negligent in her duties? No, it's not. The newcomer shook his head. Explain, Wuyi said. The Sea Cliff of Broken Hearts, they've asked us to inspect the spirit herbs. They have completed their task of growing them, stammered the junior. Wuyi and Qingyu were both shocked. Why, are you serious? Qingyu found it hard to believe. How could this be possible? It only took them 3 months. Even if they didn't care about the quality, it shouldn't be this fast. These spirit herbs were not like other ordinary ones. They said so, the person said earnestly. Let's go. Let's see for ourselves. Wuyi didn't hesitate. A short while later, Wuyi and the others flew to the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Many people noticed them on the way. Some whispered sarcastic remarks behind their backs, while others said it to their faces. The former group had lower cultivation realms, while the latter were quite powerful. However, Wuyi paid no attention to them. These people probably didn't know what had happened. If the news was true then, he would be making a huge profit. No spirit herb garden had ever grown 3 types of high-grade spirit herbs in just 3 months. Lian Daoji, who happened to see Wuyi leave in a hurry, said, Is he going to the Cliff of Broken Hearts? What happened? After investigating the matter, Lian Daoji found out that Wuyi's spirit herbs were ready at the Cliff of Broken Hearts. He was in disbelief. He followed them to the Cliff of Broken Hearts to confirm. It's impossible. How could this be? I've never heard of such a thing happening before, Qingyu said as she looked at the spirit herbs. These are of such high quality, and they didn't even take so much time. How is this possible? If the Cliff of Broken Hearts was this capable, they would have been famous in the sect by now. Qingyu just couldn't believe it. Some of the spirit herbs bloomed half a month ago, and there are no signs of damage. Who planted them? Wuyi asked Qingqiu. It was senior brother Jiang who planted and took care of them, Qingqiu said. He had no idea this would be such a shock to so many people. Qingyu didn't know what to say. Such high-quality spirit herbs. Qingyu didn't think even the law enforcement hall could pull something like this off in such a short time. She had ignored their offer back then. Now it seemed like it was the right choice. They were now at the lead. Even if the Cliff of Broken Hearts increased the price for their service in the future, it would be worth it. Wuyi stood there. He couldn't help but smile to himself. However, he didn't want to be showy. He took out some small items as a gift and gave them to the people in the garden. He wanted them to think that he was a decent senior. That would make things easier in the future. Chapter 592, Demoness, Have You Forgotten? Outside the spirit herb garden of the Cliff of Broken Hearts, Lian Daoji pounded his fist on a tree trunk. Some of the leaves fell. At this moment he was filled with regret. He could have had this kind of gain. He was the first to contact Jiang Hao and cooperate with him. The opportunity to do so again had been right in front of him, and he had ignored it. He had considered it a few times before but had always hesitated. In the end he had given up on the idea. This was the stupidest thing he had done in his life. I should have tried. If I had just made an attempt, it wouldn't have come to this. With a heavy sigh he calmed himself. There was always next time. His relationship with Jiang Hao was good. He would have other opportunities in the future to cooperate with him. It's better to be kind to such people as much as possible. If I had gotten angry at his spirit pet, things would have been different. After learning that Jiang Hao was not around, he turned and left. He would visit again tomorrow. This was not the time to be concerned about appearances. For the alchemists of the Candlelight Pill Pavilion, being humble was important. Otherwise they would miss out on many things. Meanwhile, Qingyu was still in a daze as she collected the spirit herbs. She walked to the place where the disciples from the Candlelight Pill Pavilion were gathered. She found the person who had mocked her before and looked at her smugly. She didn't say anything because she didn't have to. The news about the spirit herbs might have reached them already. However, they still had to negotiate further with senior brother Jiang Hao. Fortunately, they had already agreed to a long-term cooperation before, and everything had gone smoothly. She couldn't help but admire senior brother Bu Ye's foresight. Some people were puzzled by Qingyu's behavior, others looked displeased. Perhaps there were still some people who didn't know that the Cliff of Broken Hearts had already grown their spirit herbs. The next day Jiang Hao came out of his room. Yesterday at noon he had successfully advanced. But to ensure he was in peak condition, he had spent most of the day inside. Fortunately, no one had disturbed him during this time. He used some of his power in the courtyard. The surrounding space became heavy and felt like it was boundless. The return to Void Realm was indeed powerful. It had the power to destroy life. So powerful. The return to Void Realm was the highest cultivation realm he knew about. He had always thought that it would take a very long time to reach it, but now he was only 33 years old. In just 14 years he had completed a journey of several hundred years. Even a Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment cultivator would take around 20 to 30 years. I don't even know what rank I'd be if I was a top disciple. Senior sister Yi Yaqing, who ranked 5th, was in the late stage of the Soul Ascension realm. The one ranked 4th was at the peak of the Soul Ascension realm, and the one ranked 3rd was in the early stage of the return to Void realm. I might be around the top 3. Lu Xingxian is also about to reach the Soul Ascension realm. Fortunately, I'm a step ahead of him. Among the spies he knew, no one's cultivation realm surpassed his. He was on par with Hai Ming now. However, he couldn't provoke him. He had to go overseas first to find Tianqin and then see if he could look for Feng Hua. Since he hadn't been able to contact other spies, Hai Ming was the most important for now. He also had to be cautious of the other spies. Lu Xingqian was fine. He just wanted to sit back and watch the show. It had been a long time since he had seen senior sister Ming Yi. He wondered what she was up to. Senior sister Hua Lu wasn't there to keep an eye on him, so they rarely interacted. He watered the heavenly fragrance Dao flower with a bowl of water. He wanted to determine how many days it would take for the bubbles to appear this time. Jiang Hao intended to wait for a few days. He found out that whenever he went to the spirit herb garden, he saw people visiting the place frequently these days. Senior brother Bu Yi proposed that if Jiang Hao ever could take another batch of high-grade spirit herbs, he could contact him at the Candlelight Pill Pavilion. Senior brother Lian Daoji also offered the same thing and even told him not to worry about spirit stones. When the season came, they would immediately send him some seeds. It was not just them. Even other people from the Candlelight Pill Pavilion said the same. Jiang Hao was at a loss. Later he learned that the spirit herbs had grown too fast this time. It wasn't like this before. The previously planted spirit herbs were known to many people, and they knew how to grow them quickly. However, these herbs were complicated. So it caused quite a stir. Fortunately, not many people pestered him. At most, they would show their faces and tell him that they looked forward to working with him next time. Jiang Hao couldn't agree easily because it consumed too many spirit stones unless these people were willing to foot the bill for those spirit stones. According to what senior brother Lian Daoji said, it seems he would be okay with paying the whole amount. So, I'll need to think about it, said Jiang Hao politely as he bowed to them. 9 days later, the commotion seemed to subside. In the courtyard, Jiang Hao received 2 blue bubbles. From 7 days to 9 days. The holy medicine still hasn't given any bubbles. Perhaps it'll take close to a month. Jiang Hao did a quick calculation. He might be able to collect 7 bubbles in a month. To advance, he would need to wait for about 2.5 years. For a return to Void Realm cultivator, this speed was quite extraordinary. In the evening, Jiang Hao had just entered the courtyard when he saw a woman inside. "Are you ready?" she asked. Jiang Hao was stunned. He couldn't understand what he was supposed to be ready for. She frowned. "Have you forgotten?" "No. I wouldn't dare forget. It's just that I might need a little time to make some preparations, said Jiang Hao hurriedly. A gentle breeze blew, and Jiang Hao suddenly realized that she was in front of him. Then a finger pointed at his forehead. There was a strange sensation. A powerful force surged and Jiang Hao's clothes tugged against his body. Then the breeze disappeared and his clothes stopped fluttering. Although nothing had happened, Jiang Hao was quite frightened. She retracted her finger. I will come to find you again at this time tomorrow. If you are not ready to go with me overseas. Hong Yuye didn't complete her words and gradually faded. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out they were going overseas for real. One day was enough time to make his preparations. He could go to the law enforcement hall to receive a mission. Then he would give instructions to Cheng Cho to manage the spirit herb garden in his absence. It was a bit regrettable that the green fish hadn't appeared for a long time, and he couldn't get any news. The next day Jiang Hao arrived at the task hall in the law enforcement peak. Junior brother, it's been so long since I last saw you. Are you going out? Said the senior who was at the reception. Come, let me introduce you to the recent high-quality missions. The longest one allows a stay outside for 6 months. I specially kept this for you. Since the duration is long, the fee for failure is quite heavy. The senior smiled at him. Jiang Hao was speechless. How much is it for failure? The ordinary one is 2,500 spirit stones if you fail. The mission with a longer deadline is 6,000. But if it is for an extended period of time, you wouldn't have to worry about getting back here and going out again. In the end, Jiang Hao chose the ordinary one. He didn't have to worry about the hassle of going back and forth. Chapter 593. No, senior brother, can find another woman. When Jiang Hao left the task hall, he met Lu Xingchen, who looked a bit tired. Junior brother Jiang, it's been a while. Lin Xingchen managed to smile despite his fatigue. Senior brother, have you been busy lately? Jiang Hao asked. Given Lin Xingchen's strength and capabilities, there were only a few things to trouble him to this extent. There was also something off about his aura. A strange malevolence seemed to be lurking around him. His lifeblood was restless, his spiritual aura was unstable, and it seemed like something was corroding his body. Could it be that the 3 of the remnants launched a fatal attack? Jiang Hao felt that it was unlikely. He knew that Lu Xingchen manipulated the remnants to do whatever he wanted. However, his current state was indeed somewhat strange. It seemed like his body, soul, blood, and even his will could be controlled at any moment. Out of curiosity, Jiang Hao decided to appraise him. Another major counterattack. Jiang Hao noticed that there was less information this time. Lin Xingchen might not have thought about the remnant soul's counterattack plans. Or perhaps he had not noticed it. The former was more likely. It had been like this for years. With Lin Xingchen's strength, it was impossible not to notice. Will I miss it again? Lu Xingchen definitely couldn't maintain this state for long. Jiang Hao was going out, so he would miss the great fight for possession yet again. Lately there have been quite a number of new missions. The task hall was asking about you constantly, junior brother Jiang, said Lu Xingchen. Jiang Hao gave him an awkward smile. He didn't say much. After talking with him for a while, Jiang Hao bid him farewell and left. He headed to the spirit herb garden. Jiang Hao gave some instructions and then asked about Chu Chuan and Lin Ji. Both of them didn't need him to do anything for them for now. One progressed extremely quickly in strength, while the other remained stable as always. The two were following completely different paths. However, they both faced different kinds of pressure. Chu Chuan faced the pressure of matching up to the Bright Moon sect where Chu Jia was. She might be advancing to the primordial spirit realm by now, while Chu Chuan remained at the Foundation Establishment realm. Fortunately, the Bright Moon sect was far away, and Chu Chuan didn't know Chu Jia's strength, so things were okay for now. Lin Ji's pressure came from his fellow disciples and his 2 good friends. Even now, despite having reached Foundation Establishment realm, he couldn't catch up to his 2 friends. However, unlike before, he was hopeful. Having experienced the hardships of life and the rules of the sect, he might finally be able to plan things well. Someday he would become the version of immortal he had in mind and retrieve his safety talisman from the spirit beast. Senior brother Jiang, are you going out again? Xiaoli asked while hugging the beast. She followed behind Jiang Hao. They walked by the stream where there was no one around. Yeah. Jiang Hao nodded. Will senior sister go with you too? Xiaoli asked. Master, are you going out to find a lady for yourself? Remember to mention my name as the Great Lord Beast. You'll definitely find a lady to suit your taste, said the spirit beast. No, said Shaoli immediately. It's all good. We already have a senior sister. But Master is so magnificent. It is only natural for him to have more than one lady, said the beast. No, absolutely not. Senior sister will be unhappy, Shaoli said as she covered the beast's mouth. Jiang Hao was speechless. These two didn't even ask about what he wanted. They were already planning his partners for him. When they reached the courtyard, Shaoli and the beast followed him in. Jiang Hao, who had planned to go straight to his room, turned around to give them some instructions. Just as he turned, he saw Shaoli sneakily approaching the immortal peach tree. Her hand reached out for the fruit. The beast coughed and startled Shaoli, who quickly retracted her hand and looked around. She looked nervous when she met Jiang Hao's eyes. Jiang Hao was speechless. He couldn't understand why they had to act like thieves when plucking the fruits. He had never stopped them. He turned and walked into his house. Now that he was going overseas, he needed to consider the situation there. The first thing he needed to do was to find Tian Chen's son on the Chaos Stone. He would then use him to find out the whereabouts of Tian Chen. On the way, he also wanted to see if there was a true dragon who was suppressed under the island. After that, he would probably go to the Abyssal Sea. The news about the heart of the ancestral dragon had spread everywhere, and strong people overseas would likely be heading to the Abyssal Sea. Lu already knew how to find the heart of the ancestral dragon. They were going to the Abyssal Sea this time, not for the heart of the ancestral dragon but for the dragon pearl. At least the way Hong Yuya acted showed that she was interested in the abyssal dragon pearl, not the heart of the ancestral dragon. If I have the chance, I can also go see Qi Tian. I don't know how he's doing. However, I need to ask Lu about this. I just don't know when we will meet again. It had been a long time since the last gathering. Logically, there should have been a gathering after Kendo left the Heavenly Note sect. I didn't expect it to take this long. Most likely, Senior Dan Yuan had also gone overseas to find the ancestral dragon's heart. As for the others, Lu was probably still completing his final task. Xing was probably still troubled about figuring out a way to disrupt the formation. Gui had left the Heavenly Note sect. Jiang Hao didn't know where she was. After thinking over many things, Jiang Hao was certain of what he needed to do. Now that everything was ready, he could depart at any time. However, by evening he still hadn't seen Hong Yuya. Suddenly he sensed something. His golden ring began glowing. One of the rings was with Hong Yuya. Is she calling me over? Jiang Hao wondered. After hesitating for a moment, he chose to communicate through the golden ring and then disappeared from his original spot. Jiang Hao appeared at the gate of Luo City in the Hidden Cloud Prefecture. At the same time, a red figure also manifested beside him. It seems you're ready now. Yes, Jiang Hao said hastily. Indeed, he was ready. He had checked his treasures again. The primordial heavenly blade, the golden rings, the 9 heavens battle armor, and the immortal mountain sea shield were all accounted for. There was also a spirit tablet from the heavenly spirit tribe. He wanted to see if it would be useful overseas. Then he took out 2 peaches. He gave one to Hong Yuya. Senior, please try this. Shaoli gave me some before I left. Hong Yuya was in a red dress that reached her ankles. A red sash cinched her waist. Her long hair was tied up with a hairpin. She looked casual and comfortable, yet very elegant. She stole my peaches again? Hong Yuya asked softly as she accepted the peach. Jiang Hao was unsure how to respond. Shaoli ate them every year. It was surprising that they were in Luo City. Was she planning to stay here this time? Jiang Hao looked toward the house that used to be his home in the past. He could see the courtyard, but there was no one inside. Chapter 594, The Last Farewell. The 2 elderly people are gone too. Jiang Hao did not linger here. Instead, he left Luo City with Hong Yuya and headed to Heavenly Earth City. When they reached, Jiang Hao asked Hong Yuya where she wanted to go next, but she remained silent as ever. That meant everything depended on him. This made things a bit difficult because he didn't know which direction he needed to go to travel overseas. He also didn't know how long it would take to go overseas. The only thing worth celebrating was that he was now in the early stage of the return to Void Realm, so he didn't need to follow Hong Yuya to Heavenly Earth City. Instead, Hong Yuya followed him. By using the one-heart palm technique, they could disappear from the spot and travel together. After more than 10 years, he had indeed changed a lot. When he had traveled with Hong Yuye for the first time, he was only at the Golden Core realm. Now he was at the Return to Void realm. It was truly eye-opening. At Heavenly Earth City, a middle-aged man sat on a chair and sternly reprimanded two young people in front of him. Your punches must be steady. How did you train your bodies? You've been learning basic boxing for so long, but you still can't control it as you wish. Shameful. Truly shameful. If you leave, don't tell anyone that you are my disciples. The two young people looked to be in their early 20s, and they were practicing boxing diligently. They wouldn't slack off for even a bit. I think it's all right, said a sudden voice. All right? This is considered all right? You're too pathetic. When I advance beyond the Golden Core realm, other seniors will know you are my disciples. If you do better than others, no one will laugh at you, said the man. He then froze. He stood up and looked behind him. A young man was standing there. He could see this young man, but his features were unclear. That meant that the person's strength was extraordinary. How could such a powerful person be here? Friend Shi, do you remember me? Jiang Hao asked. There was a woman behind him. Disciple Jiang? Shi Xan recalled something and exclaimed excitedly, Friend Jiang? Is that you? Yes, Jiang Hao said gently. Then he looked at the two young people next to him who looked puzzled and worried. It seems you kept your promise. You really took them in as your disciples. One is at the 4th stage of the lifeblood refinement realm, and the other is at the 5th stage already. Not bad. Jiang Hao had met Shi Xan during his last trip. He had rescued two children on the way and handed them over to Shi Xan. He had come to check on them. He had thought, at the time, that he would come to see them if he reached the primordial spirit realm or the soul ascension realm. Who would have thought he would see them after reaching Return to Void realm? At that moment the two young people stood still. They looked a bit lost. Why are you still standing there? Don't you talk about your savior every day? Now that he is here, why aren't you paying your respects? Shi Xan said. The two people finally straightened up. They hurriedly bowed and exclaimed in gratitude. Jiang Hao didn't stop them. After this they might never meet again. After giving them some guidance and some things to help them on their path, Jiang Hao let them go. Then he looked at Shi Xan. There's something I'd like to ask you, friend Shi. Friend Jiang, you're being too polite. Please tell me what you need. Jiang Hao had come to inquire about the situation overseas. He wanted to know how to sail to the sea. The Heavenly River? It should be in the southeast, but it will take a very long time to reach the sea. Even if you use various teleportation devices, it will still take a considerable amount of time. And you will have to go through different territories, Shi Xan said. Southeast. Jiang Hao nodded. It was too far. If Hong Yuye didn't lend a hand, it would be a waste of time. Jiang Hao carefully observed Shi Xan's condition. Are you about to advance to the Golden Core realm? He was somewhat surprised. In a little over 10 years, he had advanced from the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm to the brink of the Golden Core realm. That was fast, especially since Shi Xan had no background and lacked resources. Yes. I'm just missing an opportunity, Shi Xan said somewhat awkwardly. He hadn't found that opportunity yet, so he didn't dare to advance rashly. Let me share my understanding of the Golden Core realm with you, Jiang Hao said calmly. Shi Xan was overjoyed. Jiang Hao then began to explain the Golden Core realm to him. For his own advancement, Jiang Hao relied on his cultivation base and lifeblood. Even after advancing, he continued to explore so that when teaching Ching Chou and others, he would not make mistakes. Moreover, the more he understood each realm, the less likely he would be to encounter accidents during his own advancement. This was something he never dared to neglect. As he explained, Shi Xan's eyes lit up. Then, instinctively, he took out a heaven-rejuvenating pill and began to advance. Jiang Hao didn't say much. He left a defensive formation behind and turned to leave. Outside the courtyard, Qin Baishao, the head of a famous family in Heavenly Earth City, led his men to the courtyard. Are you sure that Shi Xan has a heaven-rejuvenating pill and can advance to the Golden Core realm at any time? He didn't like having such a strong cultivator out of his control, so he came to test him. That's right, but Shi Xan is friends with the powerful person from before. It might not be appropriate for us to intervene, Qin Quan said worriedly. He still remembered when he was cut down by a single strike of the blade in the inn. That person doesn't matter. The Heavenly Earth City is still under our control. Shi Xan will understand, Qin Baishao said sternly. Boom. Suddenly, a powerful aura soared into the sky. It seemed like the power was changing. What is this? Qin Baishao was shocked. Is Shi Xian advancing to the Golden Core realm already? The aura wasn't hidden. It was unleashed with full force. He was truly bold. Qin Baishao walked in. He wanted to see where Shi Xian got his confidence to do something like this. However, in the instant he stepped in, a figure walked past him. The person glanced at him. It was just a casual glance, but it made him break out in a cold sweat. He felt frightened and insignificant. This was probably a very powerful immortal. But the person didn't linger. He left. This time, when Qin Baishao looked at the courtyard again, he found Shi Xian and his 2 disciples meditating. One was advancing and the other 2 were contemplating. They all had a defensive formation on them. He wouldn't be able to break this defense even with the strength of 100 men like him. Qin Baishao broke out in a cold sweat. He feared the immortal who had just left. What if he turned around at the last minute and struck him? Qin Baishao felt powerless. He was scared. Qin Quan beside him looked around. He had no idea what had just happened. Clan leader, what's wrong? Jiang Hao glanced back and shook his head slightly. There was no need for him to take action against these people. However, this farewell would likely be the last. Chapter 595. From now on, I will be unbridled, arrogant, and unrestrained. They had left the sect around mid-August. Now it was already early September. During this half-month, Jiang Hao mostly followed Hong Yuya. At first, they often appeared in some cities in the Hidden Cloud Prefecture. After leaving that prefecture, their pace changed. They even crossed half a province in one go. They arrived at a coastal city. It was the Heavenly Sea territory from where they could set off. They could also inquire about the general situation of the Heavenly Sea territory here, and more importantly, understand the current situation. It would be convenient for their future actions. This was a coastal city where one could see the endless sea from within the city. It seemed boundless like a massive beast. It was mysterious and vast. The sea was clear and blue. Jiang Hao chuckled inwardly. Then he looked at the figure beside him. Senior, do you plan to stay on the sea or on land tonight? He had asked around earlier. There were places to stay both on the sea and on land here. This was a city mostly inhabited by cultivators, so it was understandable that the architecture was unique. It just required spending more spirit stones. Currently he lacked spirit stones, but he wasn't worried. He had plenty of things he could sell here. After settling Hong Yuya in her room, he could look for suitable buyers. What do you think? Hong Yuya turned toward Jiang Hao. Her clear gaze made Jiang Hao feel like he had all her attention. Finally, he rented a house on the shallow sea. It floated on the surface like a small island. It was beautiful and peaceful, but expensive. It cost 10 spirit stones a night. Even with his current Golden Core realm resources, he couldn't afford to stay here for half a month. The room was beautiful. One could see the sea and the sun as soon as one got up. The scenery was beautiful and there was a good amount of spiritual energy here too. There was also a defense formation in place. Senior, please rest. I'll inquire about how to get to Chaos Stone Island, Jiang Hao said after preparing some tea. They had consumed quite a bit of tea on this trip, so he needed to replenish it later. Hong Yuya sat upright on the chair and looked at Jiang Hao. What cultivation realm are you in now? Primordial Spirit Realm? Senior, you must be joking. As I mentioned before, I am at the early stage of the Golden Core realm, Jiang Hao said. You're quite strong for someone at the early stage of the Golden Core realm. Realm Cultivator is your match, right? No matter how strong, it's not as effortless as a wave of your hand, Senior, Jiang Hao said cautiously. He had advanced too fast and sometimes it was a dangerous thing. Now that we've arrived at the coast, what identity do you plan to use? Asked Hong Yuya. The identity of Smiling San Sheng, Jiang Hao said. He had decided that from the beginning. Later he would wear the mask and become San Sheng. For authenticity, I may offend you a bit. I hope you can understand, Senior, Jiang Hao said apologetically. Smiling San Sheng was unpredictable and didn't distinguish between good and evil. To resemble him, Jiang Hao had to put up an act. However, if Hong Yuya didn't agree, there was nothing he could do. After all, staying alive was more important. But unexpectedly, Hong Yuya readily agreed. All right. But after that, you're on your own. Jiang Hao was speechless. It probably won't be fatal. As long as he didn't die, things would be much easier to handle. After all, Hong Yuya still needed him to do things, so she probably wouldn't kill him. At most, he would lose his freedom, suffer some injuries, or be restrained. He could accept all of that. Do you want some pastries to go with the tea, senior? Jiang Hao asked. When she didn't reply, he got up and left. Then I won't disturb you, senior. The moment he walked out of the room, a fan appeared in his hand. She smiled sinisterly. He then transformed into a scholar. He smiled and flew away. He didn't deliberately hide his cultivation at the return to Void Realm and didn't flaunt it either. He was fearless and indifferent. In a short while, Jiang Hao landed in the marketplace. He strolled casually on the street and stopped to inspect some things. He would occasionally ask the vendors some questions and then move on. When he saw a relatively large magic treasure shop, he didn't wander aimlessly anymore but went inside. However, there were quite a few people here and everyone was lining up. Jiang Hao quietly waited in line. Suddenly, a bald head almost bumped into him, but he managed to avoid it. The person rushed past him accompanied by 2 followers. When the man passed by him, he spat and cursed. Get lost, you scum. Normally, Jiang Hao wouldn't pay attention and would let it slide, but right now he was smiling San Sheng. So he had to speak up. Excuse me, sir, with the bald head in front, please wait in line. The others were all stunned. Some were frightened. At this moment, the bald man turned to look at Jiang Hao. Are you calling? Are there any other bald people in front of me? Jiang Hao smiled gently. The bald man sneered. What do you want? Please line up, Jiang Hao said. The people around became even more anxious. They thought Jiang Hao was just a newcomer who didn't know how things ran here. The bald man laughed. Line up? Why would I line up? Because we're all in line. Jiang Hao still maintained a warm smile. The bald man frowned. Go. Cripple his cultivation, cut off his limbs and hang them outside to dry. Don't kill him easily. Let him know that without strength, he's not even a person in front of me. In an instant, the people around Jiang Hao retreated a bit. At the same time, the 2 followers quickly moved and attacked Jiang Hao with their powers. They unleashed a strike. However, before it could land, Jiang Hao's figure disappeared. Someone screamed. The 2 followers were astonished and looked behind them. Their master had been stabbed in the stomach. And standing in front of the bald man was Jiang Hao. I kindly reminded you to line up, but you wanted violence. Jiang Hao smiled amiably. The blade transformed back into a fan in his hands. Everyone was dumbfounded. Even the steward who was about to greet the bald man stood frozen in place. Not lining up still? Are you injured? I already reminded you, said Jiang Hao. The bald man clutched his stomach and glared at Jiang Hao. However, something stabbed into his eye. The bald man fell to the ground in agony. That kind of look can offend people easily. Let me help you get rid of it. Perhaps you'll live a few more years. Jiang Hao's mouth curled up in a sinister smile. The people around him instinctively retreated. No. Please stay in line, said Jiang Hao. The others queued up again in fear. Die, shouted the bald man, and his red aura erupted. He wanted to crush Jiang Hao. However, Jiang Hao moved the fan in his hand slightly, and the blade flashed again. The bald man who had just unleashed his power was suspended in midair. Then layer by layer he fell apart. He was dead. So noisy, said Jiang Hao casually and lined up again. At that moment, no one dared to act rashly. Even the employees and staff of the shop were trembling in fear. They were afraid they might offend this individual who had popped up out of nowhere. Wasn't he afraid of attracting the wrong attention by acting so boldly? Chapter 596. You guys are really wicked. While waiting in line, Jiang Hao noticed that people at the front and behind were looking around. They looked afraid of something. It seemed that the bald man from earlier had made these people afraid due to his background. But how could smiling San Sheng be afraid of something like this? He continued to wait in line. After some time, it was finally his turn. As senior, what can we help you with? Said the woman at the counter. Do you accept magic treasures here? Jiang Hao smiled. We do. The woman nodded. How about this spirit sword? Jiang Hao took out a regular spirit sword. The woman looked at the sword with some difficulty. They didn't accept this kind of spirit sword usually, but she couldn't say that out of fear. This spirit sword costs 4 spirit stones each. We'll accept whatever amount you have, friend, said a sudden voice. It was a middle-aged man who walked over. He had an extraordinary demeanor. His cultivation realm was at the late stage of the soul ascension realm. The man escorted Jiang Hao somewhere inside. The people in the hall let out a sigh of relief. Many decided that it was not wise to stay here longer than they needed to. A man immediately pulled the woman beside him and left. "Brother, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Don't you know? The 100 Weapons Tower has a close relationship with the Blood Dragon sect. The person who was just killed was the Hall Master of the Blood Dragon sect. There will surely be retaliation. The man who took that person inside is one of the 3 powerful experts of the 100 Weapons Tower. If he really wanted peace, he would have asked us to leave long ago. I think he just invited that person inside to stall for time till the Blood Dragon sect arrives. This place will become a bloodbath. We need to go." Isn't that just a tad bit exaggerated? I feel that person acted so recklessly because he is someone important. I haven't seen him before. He is probably from outside. But even if he is powerful, he needs to be careful. Such arrogance will lead to disaster. The two of them talked as they left. They didn't dare linger here. Jiang Hao was taken to an elegant room with calligraphy and paintings around. In the center there was a simple tea table. "Friend, please have a seat," said the middle-aged man and smiled. "I am Jing Xuanzhen." "I am Smiling San Sheng," Jiang Hao said with a friendly smile. Jing Xuanzhen felt like he had heard that name somewhere but couldn't recall where. "Friend, how many magic treasures do you want to sell? We'll take them all." Jiang Hao took out 3,000 spirit swords. Jing Xuanzhen was surprised. It was much more than he had expected. "All right." He nodded with a smile and then asked if there was anything else. Jiang Hao looked at him and took out a halberd. This was a spiritual treasure of the primordial spirit level of good quality. He had estimated that its value exceeded 10,000. A halberd. Jing Xuanzhen took the treasure and examined it with furrowed brows. The quality of this magic treasure is good and logically the price will not be low. But the halberd is used by very few people, so it might not be easy to sell. So, we might not be able to give you much for it. If the price is too low, I'm sure you might not want to sell it, right, friend? How about this? I'll go ask my senior upstairs whether he wants this. To reassure you, I'll pay the full price for the spirit swords and 5,000 as deposit. Saying this, he called for someone to give Jiang Hao 17,000 spirit. Jiang Hao agreed to this. Afterward, Jing Xuanzhen took the halberd and left. Jiang Hao narrowed his eyes as he watched him leave. Jing Xuanzhen went to the upper floor. He knocked on the door and someone let him in. Inside was an elderly man with white hair. His cultivation was at the peak of the soul ascension realm. "What's the matter?" he asked Jing Xuanzhen. "That person wants to sell this. I pretended to come here to ask you about it and left him waiting downstairs." Jing Xuanzhen took out the halberd and placed it on the table. He doesn't seem to know how things work here. He is probably thinking, well, come downstairs and offer him more. He doesn't understand that with strength and brute force, one also needs to use their brain. "What if no one from the Blood Dragon sect comes?" asked the elderly man. "In that case, I will go down and buy at the price originally agreed. I'll inform him that the initial price was 13,000, and I can buy it for 14,000. If he's not satisfied, I'll add 1,000 more. Then I'll hesitate for a while, nod in agreement, and he will feel like he got quite the bargain." "But if someone from the Blood Dragon sect comes, that's even better," said Jing Xuanzhen. "When Blood Dragon sect arrives here, they will owe us a favor. Even if he escapes, we'll be able to earn 5,000 spirit stones for such an important treasure. He already has an extra 5,000 in his hands, so he might not take the risk of coming here if he escapes. I hope the Blood Dragon sect kills him. That way we'll benefit more." The two exchanged a smile. "You guys are really bad," said a voice. The two instinctively wanted to explain. They wanted to survive after all. However, in just a moment they sensed that something was wrong. They were horrified. When did someone else enter the room? Jing Xuanzhen wanted to get up, but a fan was pressed against his neck. "Friend Jing, why the rush to get up?" Jiang Hao's voice was friendly as if speaking to a long-lost friend. "Friend, this is a misunderstanding." The moment Jing Xuanzhen saw Jiang Hao, he broke out in a cold sweat. He had no idea when Jiang Hao had reached here. "Really? A misunderstanding? I don't think there is anything like that." Jiang Hao shook his head. "I'm actually too kind for my own good. That's why it hurts me to see how bad you all can be." "Friend, Jing Xuanzhen wanted to explain. However, the fan pierced his neck. "I guess it's better if bad people just die," said Jiang Hao softly. Jing Xuanjin covered his neck. He was filled with fear and despair. Instinctively, he wanted to use his cultivation to stop the bleeding and mend the wound. But it was of no use. His power was disrupted and was unable to function. His primordial spirit seemed to have ignited into a blaze and burned everything. He fell to the ground and looked at Jiang Hao in pain. He hoped he would be spared. He only saw that gentle and sinister smile on Jiang Hao's face. The smile made him feel queasy. It was terrifying. His consciousness began to fade. Jiang Hao moved the fan and walked to the elderly man who was at the peak of the Soul Ascension realm. The man had wanted to leave but couldn't move his body at all. "Senior, I have a few questions I'd like to ask you. I wonder if it's convenient for you?" The man remained silent. "Not convenient." The fan moved and a severed arm flew into the air. "It is si convenient," said the old man in fear. He was suppressed by the person in front of him. He could neither move nor speak properly. He had merely complied with Zheng Xuanjin's request. He hadn't done anything at all. Yet he had to face such terrifying consequences. "Then I'll start with the questions," Jiang Hao said softly. The elderly man broke out in a cold sweat. The more polite this person seemed, the more terrified he felt. Chapter 597. Yeah, 11M provoking you. The people from the Blood Dragon sect had arrived. Amidst the fearful gazes of those around, they stepped into the 100 Weapons Tower. They headed straight to find Jing Xuanjin. Bang. The door banged open. The middle-aged man in the lead froze in place. Jing Xuanjin lay on the ground. He was dead. The elderly man was still alive, but both his hands were severed. He looked terrified. The middle-aged man in the lead felt nervous seeing them like this. "Where is the culprit?" he asked angrily. But no one answered him. "Spread out and check the room. Find out who did this," he ordered. Shortly after, a young man reported to him. "Vice Sect Master, I found a strange smiley face." A smiley face. The man walked over and saw a smiley face on the table. It looked like it was smiling and crying at the same time. He frowned. He had seen something like this before. He then had someone tend to the elderly man's injuries. He wanted to know what had happened here. In this city, it had been a long time since anyone dared to openly kill their people. Jiang Hao had already left. He now sat calmly in the inn. He drank his tea and took stock of his gains. Although smiling San Sheng was arrogant, he wasn't a fool. When besieged by too many opponents, leaving was the wisest choice. He already had a lot of information and had also earned a lot of spirit stones. He had 17,000 spirit stones now, along with the halberd and 2 storage treasures. The people in this city are quite wealthy. In Zheng Xuanjin's storage treasure, there weren't many treasures or spirit medicines, but there were 38,000 spirit stones. This was the wealthiest Jiang Hao had seen so far. I wonder where he hid the treasures and spirit medicines. Other than the spirit stones, everything else in the storage treasure was quite ordinary. Talismans, techniques, arrays and so on. The person at the peak of the Soul Ascension realm was different. He had 2 impressive treasures, a 3-point double-edged blade of primordial spirit level and a sledgehammer of Soul Ascension realm level. Both could be used. There were also some pills and other miscellaneous items, but their value wasn't that high. As for the spirit stones, there were just over 9,000. Compared to Jing Xuanjin, it was quite less, but overall, the value of the treasures should exceed Jing Xuanjin's. It's done. Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh. He now had 65,365 spirit stones. This trip was truly worthwhile. Unfortunately, he didn't see a storage treasure on the bald man that he had killed. Otherwise, it could have surpassed 70,000. It seemed like a lot of spirit stones, but it still wasn't enough. He had asked the elderly man and found out that a ticket to the Chaos Stone Island cost around 50,000 spirit stones. If he went to buy from some second-hand resale channels, it would cost at least 80,000 per ticket. He couldn't understand these people. How can a ticket be so expensive? What kind of person could afford it? He had a way to buy the ticket now, and he had already found out where to board. It wasn't here but on a remote island. The ticket was the entry permit to the island. Jiang Hao saw many people flying in the air outside. They seemed to be looking for something. Blood Dragon Sect. He had a rough understanding of the bald man's background now. The Blood Dragon Sect was not a sect located in the city. They only had a branch here. The strength of the branch's vice sect master was at the middle stage of the return to Void Realm. Jiang Hao was somewhat surprised that in such a large city, the strongest was only at the Return to Void realm. This was just the outskirts of the overseas region. Strong cultivators would probably be gathered in the Central Sea area. But I can't entirely believe this. If the strongest is only at the Return to Void realm, wouldn't an individual in Immortal Ascension platform take away all their resources? Jiang Hao shook his head and brushed off these thoughts. The easiest way to obtain a ticket is through the Blood Dragon sect, but I don't have enough money now. I have to go sell some things and then make the trip. He planned to buy the ticket today. In the afternoon he continued selling things he had. He planned to visit the Blood Dragon sect tonight to buy the tickets. As for the matter of the ancestral dragon's heart, the senior had no knowledge of it. He felt a bit disappointed. But it was not a big deal. There were many people he could ask later. At night, in the Blood Dragon sect's main hall, several people were seated. "You still haven't found him?" asked a man in a dark red robe. The high-ranking members of the Blood Dragon sect were openly killed, and they still hadn't found the culprit. For them it was a thing of great shame. It affected their control in the city. "Not yet, but it is rumored that he is Smiling San Sheng," said the burly man who had gone to the 100 Weapons Tower before. Smiling San Sheng? Who's that? Many people had never heard this name. Me? Just as the burly man was about to explain, the door slowly opened. A man in white robes who was holding a fan stepped in. Someone had approached silently and listened to all their conversation without them knowing. It startled everyone. At this moment, everyone except the leader remained seated. The others stood up and were on their guard. Jiang Hao looked at the 7 or 8 people in front of him. He was unfazed. He looked directly at the man in the center. He wore a blood-red robe, and his body was as robust as a wild animal. "Elder Shui Hu. Smiling San Sheng." "You know of me?" said Jiang Hao. "Sorry? I'm very forgetful. I don't know your names, elders." "That's all right. We haven't met. Just heard about you from somewhere. Are you here to annihilate our entire sect?" Shui Hu looked at the man in front of him. The Heavenly Sea region was vast. It is divided into 12 heavenly domains. Very few people knew about Smiling San Sheng. The reason Shui Hu knew about him was because he had visited the southern region and had heard his name. As far as he knew, this person was mad. He couldn't be understood by common sense. He did what he pleased. This person addressed him as Elder. He was indeed bold. The others were apprehensive. However, they saw that Smiling San Sheng was only at the early stage of the Return to Void realm. They thought the sect master was mocking Smiling San Sheng by asking whether he was here to annihilate their sect. "Smiling San Sheng, you killed our hall master in public. Are you provoking us?" a woman asked. "Yeah. Do you have any objections to that?" Jiang Hao smiled with narrowed eyes. "You." This answer left everyone at a loss for words. "Our hall master Chen was just passing by, and you struck him mercilessly. Isn't that a bit overdone?" asked another person. "He didn't line up. Isn't that rude?" Jiang Hao said. "Why should he line up?" "Because everyone was lining up. Even if he was wrong in what he did, he should have been handed over to our Blood Dragon sect for judgment." "What authority does an outsider like you have to pass such a judgment?" asked a young man angrily. Jiang Hao used the fan to prop his chin up. He looked like he was actually reflecting on his past actions. Then he moved the fan a bit. There was a flash of the hidden blade. The young man was startled. He tried to defend with all his might. However, his defensive treasure shattered before the blade, and his technique disintegrated. Someone tried to help, but they couldn't stop the blade from slashing through his neck. In an instant, the head was severed from the body. After that, Jiang Hao unfolded the fan and gently waved it twice. "I would much prefer it if children didn't interrupt when 2 adults are speaking." Chapter 598, Unrivaled in the World. Smiling San Sheng. They watched their fellow sect members die before their eyes and were furious. They did not retreat. At this moment, everyone knew that most of them were not a match for Smiling San Sheng. No one knew who would be next. If they didn't unite against him and show some strength, they would be picked off one by one. They couldn't retreat. "Smiling San Sheng, did you come here just to kill people?" Shui Hu asked. He glared at the scholarly-looking young man fiercely. However, he couldn't guess what the person was thinking. Jiang Hao smiled and shook his head. "Of course not. I came here to make a deal." What kind of? Jiang Hao's gaze silenced the one who was asking. The person thought carefully. Was he also a child in front of smiling Sansheng? He decided to consider himself as one. So, he lowered his head and remained silent. What kind of deal? Shuihu asked and looked at Jiang Hao. I want to buy 2 tickets from the sect master, Jiang Hao said. Tickets? Tickets to go to Chaos Stone Island. Shuihu fell silent. Jiang Hao fanned himself. The words, smiling Sansheng, were visible on the fan. 70,000, Shuihu said. 70,000? Jiang Hao shook his head. I'm afraid that won't do. How much do you want it for? Shuihu asked coldly. 80,000. Jiang Hao stopped fanning himself. In an instant, the entire hall seemed to fall silent. No one understood what kind of bargain this was. Jiang Hao closed his fan. 2 tickets. Boom. The entire hall erupted with an overwhelmingly powerful force. After a while, Lian's Hao walked out of the hall with 2 tickets in perfect condition. He lightly waved his fan and swept away the surrounding dust. At that moment, his fan displayed the words, all things return to one. However, Jiang Hao didn't feel quite right about it. Soon, the words, all things return to one, disappeared and were replaced by another 4 words. Unrivaled in the world. Smiling Sansheng laughed as he left the Blood Dragoon sect. Inside the hall, someone said in dissatisfaction, are we just letting him go like this? Then what should we do? Shuihu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The mere thought of the opponent's calm demeanor and smile made him feel uneasy. Smiling Sansheng, a person with no apparent weaknesses, acted unpredictably. Such a person was too dangerous to provoke. It was best to avoid too many interactions with such a person. Jiang Hao returned to the inn and reverted to his original appearance. He finally breathed a sigh of relief. Today had been too dangerous. He had killed many people in the day and infiltrated the Blood Dragon sect at night. Fortunately, he had made his preparations. When Shuihu made his move, the power of the middle stage of the return to Void Realm made Jiang Hao feel uneasy. Fortunately, the reappearance of the hidden spirit was ready. It had allowed him to act accordingly. Shuihu only made one move. He knew about smiling Sansheng, so this identity is indeed useful. As for the tickets, he bought them with spirit stones. He paid 80,000 spirit stones for 2 tickets. It wasn't practical to snatch them because when he entered the Blood Dragon sect, he had sensed a powerful force lurking there. It was beyond his capabilities. There was no need to provoke such creatures. Smiling Sansheng was arrogant, but he wasn't a fool. In the afternoon, he sold many things, including the heaven-splitting halberd and the soul ascension spirit sword. He made 4,000 spirit stones from the sales, along with some pills and other items. He had 50,000 spirit stones in total. He had originally accumulated over 11,000 spirit stones. That was considered wealthy. Unfortunately, buying the tickets cost him 80,000 and left him with just over 30,000. He had also spent some on buying tea leaves. It further reduced his resources. But he still had about 30,000 spirit stones left. He knocked on Hong Yuye's door but found that it wasn't locked. I'm coming in, he said as he pushed the door open and entered. At that moment, Hong Yuye was sitting by the water and gazing at the distant stars. She was lost in thought. Did you find anything? She asked. Jiang Hao nodded and then placed some pastries on the table. I gained something. I got the tickets to Chaos Stone Island. We can board the ship tomorrow and it will set sail in about 3 days. We're quite lucky in that sense. If they missed this 3-day window, they could still get on board because the large ship would follow a certain route. As long as they knew the route, they would have a chance to board it. However, the final battle would take place in half a month. Missing it would make things much more difficult. After that, Hong Yuye asked Jiang Hao to make tea. Early the next morning, they waited for the sun to rise. Then they left the place. On a remote island, some people gathered on the shore. Among them, a woman in a black robe stood in a corner. She was accompanied by 2 followers. Madam, the ship is coming soon. The situation overseas has changed drastically, and we need to be very careful when going to Chaos Stone Island, said one of the female attendants. People who are too strong won't be allowed on Chaos Stone Island. With you by my side, I won't be in any danger, said the woman in the black robe confidently. Moreover, my cultivation realm is not what it used to be, but my talismans and formations are still strong. I can defend myself. The black hood covered a beautiful face. If Jiang Hao had been there, he would have recognized her as Mi Lingyue. She was known for her forging skills. Her purpose in this trip was to report to Chaos Stone Island. As an undercover agent, she had to report her findings periodically unless she was trapped somewhere like the Lawless Tower. If she didn't have the duty to report her findings, she would have gone to the Heavenly Note sect once again. She wanted to give Hai Luo a piece of her mind. The other heavenly kings were not happy with Hai Luo. He acted as he pleased and made them waste so many resources. He even made the other heavenly kings suspect that he was colluding with the Heavenly Note sect to deceive them. That damn Hai Luo. He deserves to live in the shadow. Whoosh! Someone was flying through the air. Mi Lingyue looked over with curiosity. She saw a scholar and a young lady in a red dress. The scholar wore white. He looked frail and was fanning himself with a white paper fan. The young lady looked calm and indifferent. She was very beautiful but lacked a powerful presence. Mi Lingyue looked at the scholar. "Do not provoke that person at any costs," said Mi Lingyue to her attendants. "Why?" The two attendants were puzzled. Mi Lingyue shook her head. She didn't know why, but her intuition told her so. This person should not be provoked. It's getting foggy. Madam, the ship is coming. The members of the End of All Things will find various excuses to target you. If it's not serious, you need to endure it. If there's a conflict, it'll cause us a lot of trouble on the way. Members of the End of All Things can be quite unreasonable at times, said one of the attendants. I know. I have traveled there many times. Those outlaws will seize any opportunity to cause trouble, said Mi Lingyue. At that moment, a large ship approached and two attendants walked to the gate. For those boarding the ship, there is a food fee of 500, a management fee of 500, a protection fee of 500, an inquiry fee of 500, a maintenance fee of 500, a medical fee of 500, a sightseeing fee of 500, and a communication fee of 500. That'll be a total of 4,000 spirit stones. The attendants must also pay. The crowd was shocked. There were still so many extra charges. Anyone with objections can leave on their own. What about refunds? For that, you deal with whoever you bought the tickets from. It has nothing to do with us. Jiang Hao looked at the person who had spoken. He was only at the Golden Core realm. He smiled and revealed his white teeth. 8,000 spirit stones for two people. Did they think they could take that amount of money easily from him? If he let that happen, could he be called Smiling Sansheng? Chapter 599. A beautiful, unforgettable woman. Faced with the unreasonable fees imposed by the End of All Things, many people had no choice but to pay. If they decided to leave, there was no way to get a refund for their tickets. Moreover, many of them were representing their respective territories on their way to the Chaos Stone Island for trade. They had their own goals and also had the backing of their respective factions, so paying a bit extra in spirit stones was not a big concern. It was precisely because of this that the members of the End of All Things felt that they had the upper hand. Jiang Hao stood in line and observed as people ahead paid spirit stones. He didn't pay too much attention to it. Most of these people were carrying simple storage treasures. After some inspection, they were allowed to board the ship. Jiang Hao saw a figure in a black robe. He felt that the woman in the robe looked familiar. From the familiar aura, he guessed it must be Mi Lingyue. Why would someone like her go to Chaos Stone Island? Jiang Hao couldn't help but wonder. However, he didn't think too much of it. Meeting her was actually a good thing since he had a question that he wanted to ask. But it wasn't urgent at the moment. He turned his attention to the two attendants collecting money. Their auras didn't seem particularly powerful. They were only at the Golden Core realm. In the eyes of these people, Golden Core realm cultivators might not be considered strong, but they had the power to control everyone because they were members of the End of All Things. That meant that the End of All Things wasn't easy to deal with. At least this ship proved that. This ship represented that organization's trade vessel, and it was reasonable for them to be cautious. Furthermore, most people had their own motives for going to Chaos Stone Island and didn't want any unnecessary complications. Soon it was Jiang Hao's turn. The man in front of him seemed to be in a difficult situation. I only have 3,800 spirit stones. Can you make an exception, fellow disciple? The man asked in a low voice. Not enough spirit stones? Why are you boarding the ship then? Said the sharp-nosed attendant coldly. 200? Does being short by 200 mean you want us to let you in for free? Where do you get the nerve to ask us that? The sharp-nosed attendant said. No. I didn't mean that. If you didn't mean that, then pay the complete amount or get off the ship. I'll cover for him, Jiang Hao said suddenly. He handed over 200 spirit stones. We're in a hurry. We don't want just 200 spirit stones delaying us further. Thank you very much, fellow disciple, the middle-aged man said in gratitude. With the issue resolved, the man boarded the ship, and it was Jiang Hao's turn to come forward. The two attendants collecting the fees didn't see any problem. They instinctively reached out their hands to collect the spirit stones. However, instead of handing over the spirit stones, Jiang Hao snatched 2 bags of spirit stones from their hands. He kept one bag for himself and handed the other to Hong Yuya. Then he walked inside with his group. The 2 attendants were astonished and quickly confronted Jiang Hao. Stop. What are you doing? The sharp-nosed attendant asked angrily. Accepting your fees. I know that you two are going to suffer a bloody disaster. I'm accepting 8,000 spirit stones in exchange for saving your lives, said Jiang Hao calmly. Hong Yuya counted the spirit stones in her hand. Are you playing a joke on us? The sharp-nosed attendant asked in a low voice. Others looked over and found that someone was asking for money in return from these attendants. Even if they did give the money, they would still have to disembark. It wasn't worth it. Do you think I took your spirit stones for nothing? Jiang Hao smiled. Don't worry. It's a fair exchange. I took the spirit stones and I will naturally do my part. This ship is ours. Here we are the ones collecting money. Who gave you the authority to collect money from us? Who even are you? The sharp-nosed attendant asked. Return the spirit stones or you'll have to kneel and apologize. Otherwise we won't let this slide, he said threateningly. Jiang Hao returned the spirit stones. Just as the attendant took the pouches back, a blade flashed and struck the attendant. This startled everyone except Jiang Hao, who just shrugged. I told you I was protecting you from a disaster. The crowd was speechless. Suddenly Jiang Hao turned to the other attendant. Would you also like my protection? The attendant was dumbfounded. He knew these people were not weak, but no one dared to act so brazenly here. Didn't he want to go to Chaos Stone Island? The incident quickly caught the attention of the ones inside the ship, and an elderly man appeared before Jiang Hao. Sir, you're quite bold, the elderly man said. Not as bold as you, Jiang Hao said. I wonder which faction you belong to? The old man asked. Jiang Hao opened his fan and revealed the words there, Smiling Sansheng. Smiling Sansheng? The old man was surprised, but his face darkened. If I'm not mistaken, you're acting recklessly even as a member of the End of All Things. What? Jiang Hao was puzzled. Since when did the End of All Things unite? We only share a common goal. We don't have to chummy up with each other. Even so, you killed someone under our jurisdiction. Don't you think you need to explain? The old man said coldly. Do I need to? Jiang Hao retorted with a smile. The old man frowned. He was considering whether to take action. Eventually he chose not to. I can overlook it because you are a member of the End of All Things. However, this woman must pay the required amount of spirit stones. I hope you won't make things difficult. Jiang Hao stood there and looked like he was deep in thought. It's not impossible, but I've recently suffered an illness. What does your illness have to do with me? The old man asked. My illness is related to this woman. After I saw her once, I was unable to forget her. If I don't see her even for a day, I go mad, Jiang Hao said and smiled at the old man. If my sickness surfaces, how many spirit stones would you offer in compensation? The old man met his gaze. Jiang Hao smiled as though he was highly amused. The surrounding crowd was wary. They felt that these two people might end up fighting. In the end, the old man gave in. He snorted and turned away. Arrange accommodation for them. I hope you won't cause any trouble during this period. Otherwise, even if you're capable, you'll end up dead by my hands. Jiang Hao smiled. However, he quickly noticed the sidelong glances of others. For a moment, his heart sank. He had lost himself a bit in the previous encounter. Now that they had successfully boarded the ship, all that was left was to wait quietly for the journey to Chaos Stone Island. He wondered if they would encounter trouble along the way. After all, there were many strong individuals here, and even with his current abilities he couldn't handle them all. Fortunately, Hong Yuya was with him. In case of a major mishap, she would also take action. He needed to talk with Mi Lingyue. He wanted to ask about something Xing had told him before. By doing so, he might exchange the information he might get from her with Chi Tian's whereabouts from Lu. If he had some time to himself later, he would pay her a visit. Chapter 600. Just a performance to reach his goal. Inside the room, Jiang Hao bowed apologetically in front of Hong Yuya. I had no intention of deliberately offending you, senior. Hong Yuya sat on the chair and chuckled, but she didn't say anything. Jiang Hao dared not say much. He broke into a cold sweat. However, there was still no response. Senior? There was still no reply. He looked up to see that Hong Yuya had fallen asleep with a hand propping up her face. Jiang Hao glanced at the large bed beside him. She didn't understand why she didn't just use the bed. But he didn't dare to disturb her and could only sit quietly. He waited for her to wake up. Jiang Hao thought about the incident from before. There were more formidable individuals on this ship than he had anticipated, and the reputation of Smiling Sansheng was more apparent among the end of all things. At least that old man didn't dare to act recklessly. No matter how extravagant it gets, I can't stop this ship from heading to Chaotic Stone Island. Otherwise, I'll become an enemy of everyone, and the formidable individuals of the end of all things will come after me. My own goals will be affected. Jiang Hao understood that even if Smiling Sansheng was arrogant, he shouldn't be reckless just for the sake of it. It was all a performance. Everything was just a performance to reach his goal. In the future, he would strengthen Smiling Sansheng's identity to make everyone fear him. That way, he would be able to extract information from everyone. He would then find the main target. Apart from these, he also needed to pay attention to the other people on the ship. They were not only capable but also had influential forces backing them. If he used them well, he might gain something. Unfortunately, he was not familiar with them. Currently, the only person he knew on this ship was Mi Lingyue. However, he didn't know why she was going to Chaos Stone Island. As the wife of one of the 12 heavenly kings, she held a high position overseas. So, why would she risk her life and head to somewhere as dangerous as Chaos Stone Island? After waiting for 3 days in Hong Yuye's room, the ship began to sail. She still wasn't awake. Jiang Hao left slowly. He wanted to check the situation outside. At first, he walked away softly so that she wouldn't be disturbed. After making sure she was fine, he then walked at a normal pace and left the corridor. The ship was massive and extremely fast. The sea was a beautiful azure blue. It was peaceful. "Friend," said a voice. It was a middle-aged man. Jiang Hao looked at him with some surprise. He didn't know this person. "I am Liao Shan. Thank you for sparing the 200 spirit stones. I came to pay you back. Here are 2,000 spirit stones for you." Jiang Hao was surprised. He had earned 2,000 so easily? He accepted the spirit stones and smiled. Liao Shan subconsciously felt a tightness in his chest. He hastily took his leave. Jiang Hao didn't mind that. He walked to the deck while holding his fan. There were quite a few people on the top and most of them didn't know who he was. No one had been on the deck during the earlier altercation. Soon he saw a person in a familiar black robe. It was Mi Lingyue. Jiang Hao appraised her. He wanted to see what she was up to before interacting with her. It seems that Mi Lingyue has been suspected for a long time. Now she is eager to break free from the Great Thousand God sect. The question is how? In Jiang Hao's opinion, it wasn't that difficult. Mu Longyu would protect her. If they ignored the Great Thousand God sect and went their own way, they would be fine. Why make it so complicated? Moreover, who could help her break free from the Great Thousand God sect entirely? Jiang Hao couldn't understand and didn't think much about it. He approached her. "Madam, may I ask you a question?" His sudden voice surprised Mi Lingyue and the others. Her two maids stood ready and Mi Lingyue felt puzzled. Why would this person suddenly start a conversation with her? Smiling Sansheng. The name was unfamiliar to them, but the person's behavior from the past few days made them realize that this man was not easy to deal with. Moreover, Mi Lingyue was wary. She knew that she shouldn't offend this person no matter what. She had intended to avoid him, but unexpectedly, he approached her to start a conversation. "Friend, what do you want to ask?" Mi Lingyue asked. In theory, this person's strength was not enough to threaten her, but she felt that this was out of her control. No one knew what this person might do. "It's about a formation. I'd like to ask for your opinion. As for compensation, I can help you in the future if you need me." Jiang Hao smiled. Right now, he didn't have anything that could help her. If she didn't need it, there was nothing he could do. Formation. Mi Lingyue realized that he already knew her identity. After hesitating for a moment, she said, "What kind of formation is it?" Jiang Hao didn't hide anything and spoke about the formation that Xing had mentioned. "How about it?" "Huh?" Mi Lingyue was puzzled. "Is that it?" Jiang Hao nodded. "It's the yin-yang formation," said Mi Lingyue. "This is clearly a yin-yang formation." The part of the formation he saw was a yang formation, while the invisible part was a yin formation. The most ingenious aspect of this formation is making it impossible for people to locate the yin formation. In fact, it's not that difficult. Usually, if you interfere with the same formation within the main 4 areas of the formation, you can find some traces. Just like that. Jiang Hao felt incredulous. If that doesn't work, you'll have to destroy the surrounding buildings, go underground, or climb a high mountain. If that's still not effective, you may have to attempt to distort the space. Some might be hidden within the space, Mi Lingyue said. "Thank you for the information," said Jiang Hao. He still didn't understand the formation and didn't want to embarrass himself by asking further. He asked her if there was anything he could help with. Mi Lingyue shook her head and said there was nothing for now. He didn't expect this formation to be broken so quickly and easily. He wasn't sure if the information he received was true or not. He could try informing Xing about it later and see if anyone had informed him about it already. After all, Gui and Lu were not ordinary people. With a few more formation masters they could figure it out. After waiting for 7 days, Jiang Hao noticed that there were more and more people on the ship. There were all kinds of people. He saw 2 ordinary non-cultivators. They were wrapped up tightly and he didn't know why. At this moment, his stone tablet vibrated. There was a gathering tonight. Chapter 601 I don't know. Don't look at me. A gathering. It's been so long since the last one. I wonder how everyone is doing. During this time he had done a lot and others wouldn't have stayed idle either. They should have made gains in various places. Many things might have happened around them. On the deck, while enjoying the scenery, Jiang Hao also observed the people around him. The people here had decent strength and some were concealing their cultivation realms. Many of them had unique auras. That meant that they had extraordinary treasures with them. However, the 2 ordinary people he had seen earlier were truly just that. They were ordinary non-cultivators. He didn't understand how these 2 managed to get on board. Could they really safely make it to land? Unfortunately, Jiang Hao didn't want to meddle. He returned to his room and waited for it to be midnight. During this time he reviewed the last gathering and compiled useful information. This was to prepare for the upcoming gathering. In the previous gathering, the most crucial thing was the ancestral dragon's heart. I wonder where the ancestral dragon's heart is. After organizing everything, he calmed himself and waited for midnight. Hong Yuye's room was right next to his. He didn't know when she would wake up, so he made some tea and left some pastries for her. At midnight, Jiang Hao attended the gathering. It had been half a year since the last gathering, and he was looking forward to it. Soon he arrived at his designated spot, where there were 3 other people beside him. "Greetings, Senior." After exchanging greetings, the 4 of them sat down cross-legged. It was like they were in the boundless starry sky waiting for Senior Dan Yuan to enlighten them on their doubts. "Do you have any cultivation-related questions?" Dan Yuan asked. Lu and Xing asked their questions. One was about the breakthrough after self-transfer, and the other was about the convergence of the main body and the avatar. Jiang Hao only vaguely understood what they were saying. It was too complex. After answering their questions, Senior Dan Yuan asked if any of them had more cultivation-related questions. This time no one spoke up. Jiang Hao had never had any cultivation-related questions, and Gui seemed to have completed her advancement. So there were no follow-up questions. "Do you have any news about the Heaven Lock technique? If you don't, there's no need to ask further. There is someone who already looked at the Heaven Lock technique," said Dan Yuan. Jiang Hao lowered his head. He knew who that was. Kendo. Fortunately, he had only looked at the theory of the Heaven Lock technique and not the real application of the technique. Perhaps knowing the concealed part was the most crucial, but he chose to give up. Once seen, it was easy to lose one's way. For some powerful people, the Heaven Lock technique was a path to endless possibilities. However, no one knew what this path would bring to oneself, or even to the cultivation world. "News of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower will still be counted, Senior Dan," Yuan said. The others didn't pay much attention to this. The heavenly fragrance Dao flower was in the heavenly note sect, and the heavenly note sect was under the jurisdiction of Jing. Since Jing hadn't spoken yet, the others didn't get involved either. Moreover, Gui had been there a few times and had found nothing. Others were too far away from the heavenly note sect, so it was impossible for them to get involved and learn more. I heard that the end of all things has already found the location of the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl. If you have relevant information, you can exchange it for rewards from me. I also heard that the end of all things has information about true dragons. If you have information regarding that, you can tell me, Senior Dan Yuan said. Jiang Hao was surprised. The Earth Extreme Silent Pearl has been found? He hadn't sensed anything recently. Could it be because he was too far away? He had to pay attention to this matter because the last time he had sensed the pearl, it was in the south. Once it erupted, the southern region would be affected. As for the news about the true dragon, there was indeed one, but he wasn't sure if it was true or false. This was a good opportunity to check it out. However, there were some things that needed to be discussed. He remained silent for a moment, then said, "The Earth Extreme Silent Pearl should be in the south." The south. Gui looked at Jiang Hao in disbelief. Why is it in the south again? The Earth Extreme Silent Pearl was in the south, and the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl was also in the south. Why were there so many disasters-inducing treasures in the south? Don't look at me. I don't know. Jiang Hao also didn't understand why. Everything was always found in the south. Perhaps during ancient times, these things happened to be gathered in one place and were sealed, and that place happened to be in the south. Many things were related to the Heavenly Note sect as well. Do you have the time to find out more, friend Jing? Dan Yuan asked. Jiang Hao shook his head. He really didn't have time. Otherwise he could try to find the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl. After all, he had a fragment of the Earth Extreme Heart Devouring Pearl. That made it easier for him to sense other things. What about you, friend Gui? Dan Yuan asked. I'm still in the south. I'm checking to see if anyone from the end of all things is getting close, Gui said. However, she was very curious about what Jing was up to. Jing did seem pretty busy lately. How much do you all know about the ancestral dragon's heart? Dan Yuan changed the topic. Lately, overseas cultivators have been chasing after the ancestral dragon's heart. It seems that they have all gone to the Abyssal Sea. Many people are taking along things related to the Dragon Clan, Jiang Hao said. In this gathering, they discussed various matters and shared information about recent events and their own circumstances. The gathering was a valuable opportunity to exchange information and insights. They helped each other in the cultivation path. So far, we haven't come across the ancestral dragon's heart. It might be because we aren't qualified enough to enter the Abyssal Sea, Lu said. I heard about it in the south too. Some people have started searching for things related to the true dragon, Gui said. I haven't heard anything related to this for now. Xing shook his head. I have some free time lately so I can keep an eye on the progress of this matter, Lu said. Dan Yuan nodded and didn't say anything more. Afterward, they started their individual transactions. Xing was the first to speak. Do any of you have information about the formation? Jiang Hao waited for a while and noticed that none of the others spoke. It's a yin-yang formation. Yin-yang formation? Gui was surprised. I have seen that before, but the one Xing showed us didn't seem to be a yin-yang formation. It should have a mutual response and allow Xing to see its changes. With these changes, Xing would have been able to perceive. Jiang Hao was surprised. However, since he had already spoken, he could only go on. I've heard that the essence of the yin-yang formation lies in concealing the yin formation. Perhaps you can pay attention to the four main directions, the surrounding buildings, space, etc. Maybe you can find some clues, said Jiang. Oh. After that, Jiang Hao didn't speak further. Mi Lingyue had only said that much to him. If she was correct, then Gui might be mistaken about the formation. In any case, he couldn't say more for now. Xing was silent for a moment. Actually, it's not impossible. Although it's different from the usual yin-yang formation, it's possible that we haven't encountered this kind of yin-yang formation before. Thank you, friend Jing. I'll keep it in mind and see if that works. If it does, I'll provide any reward that you want, said Xing. Jiang Hao nodded and then looked at Lu. I want to use the reward from Xing to exchange information about Qi Tian's location, plus the information about Tianqin. If there's no progress on Xing's end, then I will personally pay the reward. Lu and the others were surprised. Did that mean Jing was overseas? Chapter 602. This is making things difficult for me. Jiang Hao had faith in Mi Lingyue's knowledge, so he felt that he could secure Xing's reward. Even if he couldn't secure it, he would have to offer a reward to Lu. Even if he succeeded with Xing, he would have to wait till another gathering to get Qi Tian's location. That would be too late. The information about Tianqin was just an additional task. Otherwise, just asking for Qi Tian's location would be too simple. Of course, he wouldn't let Lu ask for a reward up front later on. It was somewhat dangerous for him. Before they brought it up, he would give the information about the true dragon to them. This way he could obtain the information and get a corresponding reward from Dan Yuan. Are you certain, friend Jing? Lu asked. If it's only these things, I can give the information to you now. Jiang Hao nodded and remained silent. Soon, he received a message on the slate regarding Qi Tian's location and the information about Tianqin. It contained his recent location, a brief background, and information about the weaknesses in his technique. It mentioned his child too. However, that wasn't certain. It only provided some suggestions of the places where Tianqin's son might be. It seems that Feng Hua understands his collaborators better than others. It also showed that Lu was not simple at all. Without any prior preparation, he knew so much. Ordinary individuals wouldn't have such capabilities. As for Qi Tian's location, it seemed to be on a large island. However, the information provided by Lu had a point worth noting. It was labeled 7-Day Village, and the explanation given was that this village was somewhat unusual and highly regarded. But there wasn't anything more than that. Coincidentally, that's my destination. Jiang Hao didn't say much and watched to see if they had any other tasks. I've been looking for a person named Yin Zichen lately. If you have any information, please inform me. He should be from the Heavenly Spirit Tribe, Gui said. Yin Zichen from the Heavenly Spirit Tribe? I think I heard about him many years ago. It said that he killed quite a few members of the tribe and was eventually exiled. He hasn't been active overseas in these years, Lu said. Jiang Hao thought for a moment and confirmed that he hadn't heard this name before. He had heard of Yin Wei though. He was probably after him, so Jiang Hao needed to be cautious. I have a problem with another formation too, said Xing. The formation is called Burning Immortal. When you enter the formation, you will be considered as one of the immortals, at the center of the formation. The formation is hard to understand and even harder to break. So, any related information about the formation and ways to break it would be appreciated. Jiang Hao lowered his head. From the name alone, he could guess that this formation was extraordinary. However, it wasn't practical to ask Mi Lingyue since she wasn't coming out onto the deck anymore. He could ask Hong Yuye, but he didn't know if she would be interested. After that, there were no more transactions. Gui and the others began discussing recent events around them. I have a feeling that a powerful figure has appeared in the south. People kept mentioning a person with an extraordinarily calm aura, whom they hadn't seen the true appearance of. I wonder who it is, Gui said and looked at Jiang Hao. Don't look at me. It's not me. If his guess was correct, it should be Shang'an. Has the Grand Earth Sovereign appeared? Asked Xing. Gui thought for a moment. It's hard to say. It seems like they have, but the details aren't clear. It's probably just a matter of time. It is said that at the final moment, a strong figure suddenly appeared and assisted the Xinyuan clan with the momentum of the mountain and sea sword force. Based on that, I guess it's a senior from the mountain sea sword sect. The details of the situation are unclear. Jiang Hao initially wanted to tell them but restrained himself. After all, Kendo might not be his real name. If he said something without basis, it might affect his impression in this gathering. He did know that Kendo had viewed the Heaven Lock technique, but it wasn't appropriate to tell them directly. So he chose to remain silent. The secret location of the Bright Moon sect seems to involve the Human Emperor and the fallen Immortal clan. Many people have found things related to the Human Emperor. They speculate that there might be the Human Emperor's sword there, said Xing. The Human Emperor's sword? Jiang Hao thought of the Xinyuan sword. If it was true, then the Bright Moon sect was indeed remarkable. First, there was the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment, and then there was the Grand Earth Sovereign. Recently, the Clear Sky School has been taking some actions. It seems that many people want to know about Shang'an, who possesses a sage's heart. They have formed groups to start looking for him, said Xing. Jiang Hao found it strange. Those people truly had no jobs of their own. He thought of Lu Xingchen, who was always busy with something. Xing and Gui had something to say, but Lu didn't say anything more. Jiang Hao felt a bit regretful. He was overseas now, and if there were observations or information, it would be beneficial for him. Now he could only listen and observe as much as possible on his own. After a while, the gathering ended with a reminder from Senior Dan Yuan. As he left the gathering, Jiang Hao took out a book and wrote down the information he had gained on Qi Tian and Tianqin. Qi Tian wasn't on the ship's usual route. He could only wait and find out more about him. Then he began to jot down other things from the gathering. Senior Dan Yuan started paying attention to the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl and also showed interest in the news of the True Dragon. There has been no progress regarding the ancestral dragon's heart. It seems that entering the Abyssal Sea is necessary to find the ancestral dragon's heart. Completed Xing's task and exchanged it for Qi Tian's location and information about Tianqin. Xing mentioned a new formation named Burning Immortal, while Gui was searching for Yin Zichen. There might be a connection between the secret location of the Bright Moon sect and the Human Emperor. The Xinyuan sword might be located there. Jiang Hao didn't record anything else and didn't pay much attention to other news. After completing, Jiang Hao began to review the information about Tianqin. The data showed that he frequently went to Chaos Stone Island and had collaborations with the Great Thousand God sect. His strength should be in the early to late stage of the return to Void Realm. There might be an Immortal Ascension platform expert on Chaos Stone Island. Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh. If he were an Immortal Ascension platform expert, he would be much more relaxed. In places with fewer people, the return to Void Realm was undoubtedly powerful. However, in places where sects gathered, the Immortal Ascension platform was where true strength lay. Even in a top-tier sect, there were probably only a dozen or so experts in that realm. Reaching the Immortal Ascension platform was a feat only a few achieved. After closing the book, Jiang Hao began to meditate and rest. Early the next morning he knocked on Hong Yuye's door, but there was no response. When he entered the room he saw that she was still asleep. Her cheek rested on her hand, just like when she had first fallen asleep. She hadn't woken up in so many days. Jiang Hao felt helpless. He left her room. He walked to the deck, where some people without cabins had to huddle in a corner and wait to reach their destination. Normally, Jiang Hao wouldn't pay attention to these people, but now, with two seemingly ordinary non-cultivators, his attention was drawn to them. It was the same for the others. Jiang Hao found the two people and observed them without saying anything. He wanted to try and make sense of the situation. One was a man and the other was a woman. They looked to be in their 20s. Jiang Hao had observed them for a week, but he still hadn't seen the woman clearly. It seemed that she was very concerned about being seen. As for the man, he was only passable in terms of looks. By this time, the ship had already received all the passengers and began sailing on its official route to Chaos Stone Island. It would pass by 2 more islands where passengers would disembark for half a day. The whole journey would take 7 days. Isn't it really strange to have 2 ordinary people? What kind of ordinary people can board this ship? Suddenly, a young man walked over to them. Jiang Hao frowned. Was he trying to be a hurdle in his observation? Chapter 603. Why did you use your face to hit my hand? Ran Hui was a regular schoolteacher from a common town. Ever since he had married, there had been strange occurrences in his home. The neighbors claimed that his wife was a demon in disguise, and misfortune was bound to follow. Ran Hui didn't believe them. However, no matter how many times they moved, the troubles continued. Once they had almost died. It was during that perilous time that they met a woman. She gave them a token and 2 tickets. Then they boarded a ship. The woman had told them that they might find a place to stay on the other end of the journey. But the woman also warned them that the journey would be extremely challenging, and the token wouldn't protect them for long. In the end, they chose to board the ship and relied on the token. They didn't have to pay the extra fees. But they had no cabin assigned to them, so they had to huddle in a corner on the deck and eat dry rations. Everyone on this ship exuded an extraordinary aura, and some even possessed formidable magical abilities. Many observed them, and discussions had started on how to test this couple. Ran Hui and his wife were extremely frightened until one day, a scholar stood beside them. They thought that the scholar would cause trouble for them, but he never made a move and didn't speak to them. The people around them seemed afraid of this scholar. So, the scholar just watched over them from that day on, and no one dared to approach them. In this way they lived for several days in safety. But one day someone approached them. They wanted to see what these 2 ordinary people were up to. In an instant, Ran Hui felt as if they were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. The couple held hands tightly. They were ready to face whatever was coming. Jiang Hao stood nearby and watched the trembling woman lean against the man. They seemed to have made a decision. Whoosh! The scholar opened his fan and the 4 words, "Smiling San Sheng," flashed noticeably. "This is quite troublesome." His voice was deep. His pearly white teeth became visible once again. 2 ordinary people trying to hide. "What are you hiding from?" asked the young man. Several others accompanied him. They were all curious about these 2 non-cultivators. "Esteemed immortal, we have not offended you in any way. Please spare us," said Ran Hui pleadingly. He knelt on the floor. "It's all right. We're just here to take a look. We won't harm you. Take off your robe and let me see," the young man said. At that point, several people gathered around. They were also curious about these 2 ordinary people huddled in the corner. The man reluctantly took off his black robe. He looked like a scholar. "What about the other one?" Wu Zheng asked. "My wife was born ugly, and I dare not offend distinguished immortals with her appearance," Ran Hui said meekly. "Ugly?" Wu Zheng burst into laughter. "I've seen all kinds of ugly women. Come now, reveal her so I can take a look." Ran Hui didn't agree. He simply knelt on the ground and said her appearance might frighten others. At that moment, Wu Zheng's people came forward while trying to push Jiang Hao out of the way. He didn't budge. It seemed like everything was happening too fast. Nobody knew how to react. Wu Zheng said, "Fellow disciple, step aside and let me see what secrets these 2 ordinary people are hiding." The others who had tried to push Jiang Hao away didn't dare to make a move. Just as the opponent thought he had control over the situation, there was a sudden scream. One of Wu Zheng's men was flung in the air. He disappeared into the sea. He had been thrown off the ship. "Who are you?" "Me?" Jiang Hao was standing on the edge of the ship. He smiled at them. "Why did you suddenly attack my man?" Wu Zheng asked. "Well, what are you going to do about it?" Jiang Hao said. "Fellow disciple, don't you think you should explain yourself?" "We're all..." Smack. Wu Zheng was slapped squarely on the face. The crisp sound reverberated throughout the deck. Jiang Hao had appeared beside Ran Hui. He smiled amiably. "Fellow disciple, you're really unreasonable. You used your face to hit my hand." "You..." Wu Zheng's nostrils flared up in anger. But he didn't lose his composure. "Fellow disciple, why are you going against us? Is it because you want to offend our heavenly king?" "Heavenly king?" Jiang Hao felt he should be wary of them, but he was smiling Sansheng right now. If he feared this young man, how could he claim to be the bold smiling Sansheng? He then smiled. "Fellow disciple, you're quite naive. Who says you have to provoke me to make me retaliate? Sometimes, it can be I who provokes you for a fight. You're not afraid to confront us?" Wu Zheng didn't even finish his words when he was slapped in the face again. Smack. Wu Zheng felt his dignity was shattered, and his anger could have set the whole ship on fire. He had only intended to find out who these 2 suspicious individuals were, especially the woman. If she was indeed a stunning beauty fleeing the place, he could capture her and present her to the heavenly king. He could have earned significant rewards. If she turned out to be truly ugly, he would have killed them both here. However, to his surprise, every time he tried to approach them, this person intervened and humiliated him. "You must have a reason for picking a fight with us, right?" Wu Zheng gnashed his teeth. "Well, there's nothing special about it. I just want to talk with this scholar," said Jiang Hao. "In that case, feel free to speak," Wu Zheng said in a low voice. Jiang Hao paid little attention to him and turned to the scholar. "Lift your head and look at me." The person looked at him in panic and helplessness. Jiang Hao smiled. "Judging by your appearance, you seem like a scholar. Now, when you see me, what comes to your mind?" There seemed to be a glint in the person's eyes. It was as though he was rapidly trying to process all the knowledge he had. Like a jade. Incomparable. Jiang Hao opened his fan to reveal the 4 words on the back of it, "Unrivaled in the world." He laughed heartily. Jiang Hao then squatted down and glanced at the woman who was hiding her face with the black hood of her robe. Her skin was dark. She looked terrified. Jiang Hao understood why she didn't want to show her face. She had the gift of charm. Jiang Hao stood up. It was no wonder she wanted to escape. A charm physique was hard to ignore for both ordinary people and cultivators. Even if she didn't have any special talents, she would still attract trouble. It was quite remarkable that she had survived until now. But why come here? She was like a sheep entering a tiger's den. Smiling San Sheng, don't you already have your lady by your side? Why are you eyeing other people's partners? Said the middle-aged man teasingly. Is your lady not attractive enough for you? Chapter 604, Demoness, if you didn't forget, answer me. Inside the room, Hong Yuya sat on the chair. Her eyes trembled slightly as she awoke from her sleep. She slowly opened her eyes. She sensed an invisible aura dispersing around her. Her gaze paused on the teapot and pastries on the table. She touched them gently and found that the tea inside was still a little warm. Hong Yuya slowly stood up. Creak. The door opened automatically. Her steps were light, yet they resounded through the empty corridor. Occasionally people would appear, but they seemed unable to perceive her presence. A short while later, the commotion outside caught her attention. She saw smiling San Sheng standing in front of two people in black robes. He looked wild, fearless, and ready for a challenge. Hong Yuya approached him quietly. She was observing everything that was happening. She wanted to confirm if he was really wearing the identity of another person or if this was how he always wanted to be. Yeah, said someone in the crowd. How good is your lady? The voice was elusive as if they didn't want to be recognized. How is she, you ask? Said Jiang Hao from the center of the crowd. Yes. How would you describe the unforgettable and haunting lady you came here with? Asked another person. Hong Yuya looked toward the center. At this moment, Jiang Hao was fanning himself and seemed unaffected by anything around him. In the southern region, she is a peerless beauty, who is incomparable to anybody else, he said slowly. The entire southern region? How can you be sure she's the only one like that in the entire southern region? Someone asked. You say that because you haven't seen her smile, Jiang Hao said calmly. What about her smile? Wu Zheng asked. Hong Yuya looked at Jiang Hao in the crowd. She stood still and showed no emotion. No one knew what she was thinking. Jiang Hao stood in the midst of the crowd. He met everyone's gaze. He looked wild and free. A bit arrogant with madness in his eyes. If that is true, why did you target this woman then? Is she the only one who could compare to your lady? Have you become infatuated with this woman, or do you get infatuated with every woman you see? Are there other beauties in the other three regions apart from the southern one? Wu Zheng asked. This time he was fully prepared. He was determined not to get slapped again. However, the moment he finished speaking, he felt a chill behind him. A blade pierced through his body and broke through his defenses. It shattered his magical treasure. The power of this blade was strange. Do it, he roared. In an instant, Jiang Hao sensed a powerful force that was at the peak of Soul Ascension Realm. It was at the brink of entering the Return to Void Realm. These people had decent strength. Jiang Hao's lips curled into a smile. He used the reappearance of the hidden spirit. He swung his blade and used the third form of the heavenly blade, Meteor. A burst of light flashed like a myriad of stars. A powerful force erupted and forced the people around to retreat. Then the intense light landed in front of Hu Zheng and the others. There was a white figure in the white light. The fan unfolded and revealed 4 words, unrivaled in the world. With a wave of the fan, Hu Zheng and his group were sent flying into the deep sea. This person was so ruthless. People were frightened. It seemed this man wasn't even afraid of offending the heavenly king. Jiang Hao turned and looked at Hu Zheng and the others. His brow twitched. He hadn't intended to throw them into the sea. After all, he hadn't taken their storage treasures yet. Someone was secretly making a move. Someone was trying to eliminate this group of people by using him. Jiang Hao did not see anyone. It seemed they had left. He continued to stand in the corner and observe the 2 ordinary people. No one knew why he wanted to keep an eye on them, but no one dared cause trouble because they were frightened. Ranhui felt grateful, but he dared not say anything. He could only huddle with his wife in place. Jiang Hao lowered his head. He was puzzled. These 2 people seemed to be really in love. It was unbelievable. He had only come across 2 people with charming physiques till now. One was senior sister Yun Ruo, and her appearance needed no explanation. The other was the charm goddess. But the woman in front of him was like a breath of fresh air. In the evening, he walked to Hong Yuya's room and found her drinking tea and eating pastries. Senior, you're awake? Hong Yuya put down the teacup and turned to look at him. She smiled. She is a peerless beauty, who is incomparable to anybody else. Jiang Hao was surprised. He then felt embarrassed. He then lowered his head. Senior, you know that poem too? I'm impressed. Hong Yuya just smiled. Is this also something you learned from your father? I learned it from hearsay, Jiang Hao said. Hong Yuya didn't say anything. She drank her tea. After a moment of silence, Jiang Hao asked something that had been in his mind all this time. Senior, can someone with a charm physique live a normal life like an ordinary person? What do you think? Is it good or bad to be born with such a physique? Hong Yuya asked instead. Physique itself isn't inherently good or bad. It depends on the person, Jiang Hao said. Hong Yuya was surprised. Then why are you asking such a question? I just had this thought. I'm not sure if anyone can do it, Jiang Hao said truthfully. He knew that something that existed in nature wasn't inherently good or bad. It depended on the person and how they chose to use the particular gift. However, knowing this didn't change the fact that he didn't even know of one person who had defied convention. No. Hong Yuya shook her head. At least among those who have inherent charm physiques I know, none of them led an ordinary life. They're either forced to change or they willingly put themselves through it. None? Jiang Hao wasn't surprised. The two ordinary people were the same. They wanted peace, but the world wouldn't give them that. Unless they secluded themselves in a place with just the two of them, it was impossible to live a peaceful life. The curse of having a charm physique was temptation. It tempted everyone around and made life difficult for those who had this gift. For a day or two it might be fine, but over time, others became obsessed with people like that. Upon careful consideration, Jiang Hao felt that the master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion was not very lucky. If this person was someone evil, Jiang Hao would have taken her to the sect and offered her to the pavilion master, but she was only an innocent ordinary person. Whether he was Jiang Hao or Smiling Sansheng, he had his morals. Do you remember what you'll face if you offend me? Hong Yuya suddenly asked. Jiang Hao was stunned. He wondered if she had mentioned it before. Have you forgotten? No, senior. Your every word and action is etched in my heart, Jiang Hao said. I will never forget. All right then. Answer me. Jiang Hao was speechless. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.